And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, October 25th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by BetMGM. Four-game slate here today. It has become a little bit more complicated than it was earlier. It's still just generally kind of a weird one. We've got this Clippers, Thunder, Pelicans thing to try to deal with. We're going to break down all of it today. So buckle up, everybody. We're going to be here for the next hour, and we're going to turn it over to Live Before Lock. They're going to take you up until 7 o'clock. So 2 straight hours of content for you guys. We're going to have some fun. Before we do anything, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander season today, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. I'm happy about it, assuming he actually plays. If he doesn't, it's going to be a pain in the ass. But yeah, I like it. I like it when SGA plays without Giddey because it's just really fun from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, we're going to get into that and more for today. Adam and I broke down this slate earlier on the strategy show. You could make a case that it's more difficult now, honestly. We have less information on some of these lineups, but let's just get in. Actually, there is one thing I wanted to look at. How much more has that Clippers line moved? I don't know if you've looked at it at all.
I haven't.
It was 9 earlier this morning. It is now down to 8. So slowly but surely moving its way down. I mean, even if they put Shai in, that's not a line that's going to be moving a ton. You can only do so much. But
it's YouTube chat when 30 seconds into the show, you just keep seeing the same name pop up, and it's somebody that I have projected for 8 points.
Poku?
Walters.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. We'll get to it, I guess. Let's kick it off. Let's go to Detroit. Detroit, 6-point dogs, 220 total here against the Wizards. Pretty easy team to try to break down. We've got ownership coming into Cade Cunningham, Saddiq Bey, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Isaiah Stewart. They're all basically 20% owned. Jaden Ivey coming in quite a bit below that mark. I don't really have anybody that separates from the pack here. I would say that I probably prefer Cade and Isaiah Stewart the most on the DraftKings side, but they all kind of look pretty similar. What stands out to you most from Detroit?
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. As a whole, the team looks pretty good, but then also there's just sort of bigger priorities at every position, I think. So it's a team that I do expect to get a decent amount of. Cade, for me, probably stands out the most as well. Not surprising, I'm sure. I get to him a ton, pretty much always, but he is projected for 19% ownership. Whoops, I was looking at Yahoo. That was not right. He's projected for 20% ownership, 16% chance of being optimal. So pretty close there. He looks pretty good to me. Stewart at 20%, Bey at 20%, both look fine as well. Jaden Ivey was one that I really would like to get to. I think he's going a little bit under-owned. I like the upside that he offers, but it was difficult this morning to get there, and I think it's even more difficult now if we're assuming that SGA is going to play, because I do think Ivey's probably overpriced by a little bit at 6,800, but it's not by a crazy amount. So I do like the upside that he gives you with about a 24% usage rate so far this year. It's just that you have a lot of guards on the slate that look good, and then you throw SGA into it, and it's even more difficult.
Yeah, I'm finding it a little bit difficult to get to Jaden Ivey. One, I just don't totally know what his true talent level is going to be. I've got him at 0.93 fantasy points per minute in this spot. He's been at 1.04 FanDuel points per minute so far this season. Rookie guards tend to struggle a little bit. If he ends up being really efficient, it'll be nice to see. But I'm a little nervous about that price tag. On the FanDuel side, Cade Cunningham is 30% owned. I'm getting to that same 30%. Happy to get to Cade as always. Isaiah Stewart is about 14% owned. I'm getting north of that number. He's 6K, gets the power forward eligibility, which helps. Bey, Bogdanovic, Ivey, a little bit of them, but nothing too crazy. The thing that I can't really get to here is anything from the bench. I mean, if I had any shares of Jalen Duren, that'd be fine. I think you can get to some Killian Hayes, and that's okay for a larger field GPP. But I think this is really just the starting five and nobody else.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I see it as well. We talked about it this morning with Jalen Duren, kind of comparable to what we were talking about with Andre Drummond yesterday, where there's just going to be X number of games this year where Isaiah Stewart gets in foul trouble or the Pistons bench plays really well and gets extra minutes or whatever it may be. And at 4,900, Jalen Duren is going to just crush that price tag. But more often than not, you're just talking about him playing 20 minutes, give or take, behind Isaiah Stewart and not really being that good of an option. So at very little ownership, if he ends up in a large field lineup here or there, that's fine. I wouldn't want him with Isaiah Stewart. Similarly with Killian Hayes at 3,700, he's pretty much playing like 16 to 18 minutes. But if Cunningham gets in foul trouble, if Ivy gets in foul trouble, maybe you see more minutes for Hayes. So again, 1% ownership. If he ends up in a lineup here or there, it's fine, but certainly nothing that I'm looking to get to. Whereas the starters, particularly Cunningham, Bey, Bogdanovich, and Stewart, I think all stand out as pretty solid options.
I asked you this question this morning. I'm going to follow it up for anybody that doesn't see, excuse me, the strategy show. Would you be willing to play Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren in the same lineup?
Answered it 30 seconds ago, but no.
Oh, did you? Oh, I pulled an Adam. I wasn't listening to the damn word you said. What was the answer?
No.
I didn't think so. Do you have any other rules that you would be setting for Detroit? This seems sort of like you just kind of let it rip other than the two centers.
Yeah, that was the only one that I set. Like if I'm making one lineup, I'm probably not, I'm not playing Killian Hayes anyway. But if for some reason I were playing Killian Hayes in like one lineup, I probably wouldn't play him with Cade, but I don't care enough because like there's ways they can both get there. I'm not overly concerned. I'm not setting that rule across 150 lineups.
And to be fair, I did mute myself, look away, cough, and then grab my water. So I'm going to assume you said it at that time where I actually was doing something that I had to handle.
Yeah,
so.
we can go with that.
Yeah, that seems like the most likely scenario. To your Wizards, we go. Beal, Kuzma, Porzingis, all like 20 to 25% owned on DraftKings. Slightly different ownership on FanDuel, where Bradley Beal is 38% owned. Kyle Kuzma is 22% owned. And $7,400 power forward center Kristaps Porzingis is 54% owned. I'm going to let you hit the DraftKings side for the quote-unquote big three for the Wizards. Who do you like the most there? Who do you like the least if you do? Do you want to get to all three? Where do you stand?
So I am perfectly fine getting to all three. Right now, I'm really only getting the Porzingis on DraftKings. I think that probably is just because the guard position is so heavy and then got heavier with SGA. You've seen Bradley Beal's usage rate come down a bit this year. He is very involved as a playmaker, leading the team in potential assists, but I still kind of just think the new price tag on Beal, while at first glance it's like, oh wow, Bradley Beal's really cheap, I think it's more of like where it should be. Obviously he still has a high ceiling there. You're going to get some games where Bradley Beal just goes out there and scores at will, but at least right now, I don't think they're looking for him to be this 30% usage guy that he was in the past. I think that, Porzingis is a big part of the offense. Kuzma is going to continue to be a big part of the offense. And you're probably going to see Beal settle in around 26, 27% usage. So I think he's fine, but at 22% projected ownership, I'm not getting there. Kyle Kuzma at 6,900. I really like what we've seen from him, the way the Wizards have been using him, especially from a fantasy standpoint. He's tied with Porzingis in rebound chances per game. They've talked about letting him initiate the offense more, both in transition and off of inbounds, which should just be good for his fantasy production in general. But I'm also not getting to a ton of him either. I think it's probably just a function of paying down more at forward so that I can allocate more money to those pay up guard options. So I think Kuzma is fine. I'm personally not getting a lot. Porzingis, though, is the one that I really am getting a lot of. We have him projected for 30% ownership. I have about 40%. Like I said before, he's tied with Kuzma for the team lead in rebound chances. He's got about a 22.5%, 23% usage rate so far this season. But the other thing that sort of makes me optimistic about Porzingis is if you go back to his time with Dallas, he had like a 26.5% to 27% usage rate when he played with Luka. I kind of find it difficult to think that long-term Porzingis has a lower usage rate with the Wizards than he did playing with Luka, given that Luka's usage rate is so much higher than anybody on the Wizards. So I wouldn't be surprised if you also kind of see Porzingis' usage come up a bit as they get further into the season.
Do you have any specific thoughts to Porzingis' ownership on FanDuel, just because it is 54% right now, but 7,400 power forward center? Like, to me, I think it's pretty well warranted.
Yeah, I do too. That power forward eligibility really opens up a lot, and the price tag is cheaper than it is on DraftKings, which is normally a pretty big flag that somebody is underpriced. So yeah, it's just a spot where, it's a lot of ownership, but you're also talking about somebody that we have projected to be in the optimal lineup nearly half of the time.
Yeah, I'm still getting to 40+% of him, even with that ownership. It doesn't seem like something I want to try to get away from. I think he's just an undoubtedly good play. And I like the matchup too against Detroit. They don't, not that like a lot of people have the correct matchups for Kristaps Porzingis, but the Pistons don't really have that
Yeah.
It's not Boyan at the 4 if it's going to be that. And I don't think they're bringing Beef Stew out to the 3-point line for it either.
Yeah. Right now, Porzingis on DraftKings would be my 5th highest owned player if the slate started.
Cool. All right. Good to know. Let's hit our first coin flip. Monty Morris, DeLon Wright. Morris is 5% owned. DeLon Wright is unowned on DraftKings. That is basically the same scenario here. Do you have a preference between the two? Do you even care which one you get? Because they are sort of just splitting minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I got to more Morris. I got like 7% Morris. I got 1% DeLon Wright. That is a group that I set a rule also not to get them together just because there's no real reason to. They're not playing alongside each other. And they're probably, well, not going to close together given the not playing alongside each other part. So I don't really have a strong preference. I would rather get Morris if I can, but he's also $700 more expensive. We've seen a pretty low usage rate from him. I assume that continues just because he's playing with Beal and Kuzma and Porzingis, but should still be those games where at 5K, he's just gets hot, knocks down some corner threes, gets an extra assist or two here and there. So I still think there's some upside at 5K, but not any sort of a priority for me.
Coin flip number 2, Denny Avdia, 3,800 on DraftKings. Will Barton, 4,400 on DraftKings. Both guys about 5% owned. Will Barton now mostly unowned on FanDuel. Denny is 3,800, 5% owned. Do you have a preference between Barton or Avdia?
Slight preference on Barton, but I'm getting more of both of them than I am Morris and Wright.
Okay.
Barton, I got around 20% Barton on DraftKings. I got like 15% Denny Avdia. You can't really be too confident in the playing time for either one of them. I think a lot of it is just going to be dependent on how the game is going and also how they're playing. We've seen a competitive game where Will Barton plays a ton down the stretch and Denny Avdia plays like 15 total minutes. But then we've also seen the competitive game before that where Will Barton plays between 17 and 18 minutes. Denny Avdia is in the closing lineup. You can't go back to game 1 because Denny Avdia got hurt in that game against Indiana. But we've already seen where Avdia is the closer and where Barton is the closer. So I just set a group to not have them together. Avdia is a little bit less expensive. Barton is not expensive either. The one thing that makes me kind of prefer Barton, though, is not that I expect him to be a consistent source of usage on this team. I expect him to live in that like 20 to 21% range that we saw with Denver and that we've seen in a limited sample this year. But we know that he has the offensive game to just sort of take over offensively, whereas Avdia's got a well-rounded offensive game, but he's not the same level of scorer as Will Barton. Like if Will Barton just goes out there and scores 30 real points in a game off the bench, nobody really bats an eye. It's just like, oh, Will Barton did that Will Barton thing. And Denny Avdia, if he does that, it's like, holy shit, where did that come from? Like, I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, I mean, Will Barton generally like an average usage guy. Denny has been in like the 14, 15% range for a lot of it. So just not the same sort of score. The only other guy that doesn't have anybody tied to him. Any interest in Rui? 8% owned on DraftKings.
The usage has been there for him playing with the second unit. I don't anticipate getting to a lot. I think there's enough value elsewhere on this slate. Yeah, I got like 2%. If that came up a little bit, I'd be fine with it. But I think with the Pelicans and the Clippers, there's just so much cheap forward value that Rui kind of gets pushed out of the picture for me.
If Porzingis had the power forward eligibility, I think you could justify Porzingis and Gafford, given Gafford is at sub 4K on DraftKings. But with them both being center only, I'm guessing you're not looking to get to both in the same spot.
Yeah, I'm not playing them together, and I kind of have a problem with it anyway, just because the Wizards don't use Porzingis at the 4. So You're still just talking about for Gafford to have a game that you really want in tournaments, you probably need Porzingis in foul trouble.
Yeah. I think that one would be more feasible if you had a little bit more positional flexibility just because of the price, but it's not one that I would want to get to either.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I don't have any Gafford right now. I wouldn't be upset if I got a little bit, but I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like every team that we touched on this morning had a Gafford.
Yeah, I think like every team today has a quality backup center in terms of point per minute production.
Yeah. Anything else we should touch on Detroit or Washington?
I don't think so.
All righty.
Oh, I wanted to double back because I hadn't actually loaded my exposures yet when we talked about Detroit. But yeah, getting like 15 to 20% Stewart, Bogdanovich, Bay. So pretty much what I expected there.
All righty.
Oh, I'm down to 18% Cunningham in that most recent crunch.
Does that make you happy?
Sort of, because I've just been playing so much of him this year and I'm tired of it. But wouldn't be upset if that came up a little bit between now and lock.
We've got NBA Live before lock coming up next, and then that's actually it. We don't have any other live shows coming up for the rest of the night other than basketball, so make sure you're staying on this stream for the rest of it. And just in case you're not aware, between the process show, my contenders videos, Adam does GPP videos and an injury report video for any slate that is going to have any sort of sizable injury report. There's a lot of pre-recorded content that you could get to throughout the day as well, so make sure you're checking all of that out.
All of the value on New Orleans is not nearly 6K.
No, it is not. But
correct.
I mean, I'm just letting it go now. I can't. It's so frequent that it's now no longer bothering me. It's too much. I'll lose my mind. The Dallas Mavericks are 6-point favorites in New Orleans, 218 total. When you and I did this game earlier today, Tim Hardaway Jr. was playing, as was in our eyes, Zion Williamson and Herb Jones. Now, Hardaway Jr. gone. The Pelicans are going to be without Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, and Zion Williamson, 3 of their 5 starters. We have all sorts of stuff to talk about on the Pelicans side. The Dallas side, probably a little bit more cut and dry, a little bit easier to deal with. We just sort of need to fill in Tim Hardaway Jr.'s minutes with what I imagine are just guys that aren't going to be all that interesting. Facundo Campazzo has been signed by the Mavericks. He is available to play for today. Let's just start at the top. 11,100 on DraftKings, 11,200 on FanDuel. Very heavily owned on both sites and completely warranted in my eyes. Luka Doncic, clearly the top projected play for today.
Yeah, and on DraftKings, my highest owned player right now, it's not particularly close, have him in nearly 90% of lineups, which I'm obviously fine with. It's just difficult to make up that level of point or that level of raw points. There's obviously other guys that have really high ceilings on the slate with Curry, with SGA if he goes, with Devin Booker, but those guys are going to get some level of ownership anyway. And then Luka just projects so much better that I'm just going to get to Luka a ton. One thing I will mention is I am playing Yahoo tonight as well. I don't know off the top of my head what my exposures look like there, but the one thing I did notice when I did a crunch earlier was I wasn't getting nearly as much Luka there as on DraftKings. So if anybody's playing Yahoo, obviously Luka's still a really good play. He's still the top projected guy, but their pricing does create a massive gap between him and like everybody else. So probably not as strong a play there as he is on DraftKings.
All right, I think we can then move away from Luka Doncic into the rest of the team where Spencer Dinwiddie and Christian Wood are both like 10 to 15% owned. That's the same sort of story on FanDuel, along with Dorian Finney-Smith getting just north of 10%. Do you look at the rest of Dallas and see anything interesting? To me, Spencer Dinwiddie is the second best option after Luka. 5,400 on DK. He's 5K on FanDuel. Not pulling as much ownership as I would expect. I bumped him up to 30 minutes now. He has been a little bit under that so far to start this season. I don't think that he's the type of guy that they just want to run out there for a ton of minutes any longer based on, previous knee injuries. But I think he looks like the best point per dollar play for Dallas.
Yeah, he's the guy I'm getting most other than Luka from Dallas. I expect him to play a few more minutes with Hardaway out. And he's just cheap enough where he was in play even if Hardaway played. So getting to some Dorian Finney-Smith as well. He's just inexpensive at 4,700. He's only projected for about 6 to 7% ownership on DraftKings. So it's basically an ownership play for me. Like if you tell me Finney-Smith's going to be 15%, I will probably just run the other direction. But at very low ownership, the minutes should be there for him. And, it's a spot where there's certainly the potential for plenty of turnovers and just a really sloppy game where Finney-Smith just racks up some defensive stats. So I like getting there. Christian Wood's getting a little bit more ownership than I expected at 11%. So I'm not getting there. It certainly could burn me. We talked about it this morning. The guy is just doing everything when he's on the floor. 39% usage rate through their first 2 games, getting assists, getting rebounds. Obviously that production is going to come down, but he's going to be really good playing with that second unit. So if he burns me, it's not like it would be really surprising, but he's still $7,600. And I just think the ownership is high enough where it's not really worth the risk to me, particularly on this slate. JaVale McGee, if you get there at 4K, is fine. I'm not really getting there right now, but wouldn't talk anyone off of it.
I am getting to a bit of Dorian Finney-Smith. You mentioned him before. This is a FanDuel take. He's 12% owned, 4,300. Also has the small forward eligibility. I think he just fits right in. He is not a good per minute guy. 0.72 in my baseline, and I actually have him slightly lower than that, 0.69. So that's pretty nice. I am getting to Dinwiddie at 5K. Again, it's just a price thing. You're looking for like 35 fantasy points out of Dinwiddie in this spot at that salary to feel pretty good. If he plays 30 minutes, that's 1.16 fantasy points per minute. I don't think that's the biggest stretch in the world I also am not getting to Christian Wood. 8,200 on FanDuel, 15% owned. I don't like the way that feels, given the way that he started and the fact that he is just like an all offense player, but I'm going to try to avoid that and cross my fingers. Do you see anybody getting a big benefit from having Hardaway out?
Not really. My expectation is that it's a few more minutes for Dinwiddie. I think Bullock probably plays more, but from a fantasy standpoint, I don't think that really matters. But just kind of looking through their rotation from previous games, you were seeing times where Dinwiddie and Hardaway would sub in out for each other, and Bullock and Hardaway would sub in or out for each other. But Bullock's just such a bad point per minute guy that, if he goes from 30 minutes to 34, 35, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. One other comment I saw in chat that I think was a good thought, but I wanted to sort of point it out. Somebody, I missed the name, but somebody said that really the only way to fade Luka on this slate is to just stack a different game and hope that Dallas just destroys New Orleans, which, like, I do get the thought process there. But Luka is such a ridiculous part of the Dallas offense. Like, we just saw it the other day when he scored like 60-something DraftKings points in 3 quarters. It's one thing when you have like a star and then two or three other really good players that can just, blow out the Pelicans by themselves. Like, if Dallas blows out the Pelicans to where Luka's not playing the fourth quarter, it's very, very, very likely Luka did it. But I do get the thought process in general.
Yeah, he's just... When you've got a guy with a 45% assist rate and a 35% usage rate, it's really hard for him to not be a part of a blowout, barring injury. Like, he is a part of basically every scoring play that will exist for 3/4 of the game. So he's not the guy that I want to try to get away from. I mean, like, there's always days where all of a sudden Maxey plays 32 minutes, and that's kind of the game. I don't know if that's today. I'm not all that interested in Maxey, Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, Campazzo, whatever else is showing up. This one's pretty simple to me for Dallas.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's Luka is the clear priority, and then just let the rest of those guys sort of filter in. For me, it's Dinwiddie and Finney-Smith as the next two up.
It's a little bit less easy to try to figure out what the hell to do with the Pelicans. We can start with some of the easier shit. So, CJ, again, I want to put this out there. We've got no Herb Jones, no Zion, no Brandon Ingram. We need 3 new starters. CJ McCollum's 8K. He's 8,300 on FanDuel. He sees a pretty giant usage bump when Brandon Ingram is not on the floor. You get all of the time that he was on the team last year with no Zion. So that kind of actually makes it a little bit easier from a rates perspective. I like CJ quite a bit. I think the 30-ish% ownership seems about right.
Yeah, I agree. That's about where I'm getting to as well. 32.5% usage rate, 32.5% assist percentage once he joined the Pels in the minutes that he played without Ingram or Zion last year. He's going to look really good. On a lot of slates, he would be getting even more ownership, or I'd be playing him even more. But you just run into the issue on this slate where, Luka's a guard, McCollum's a guard, Paul's a guard, SGA is a guard. There's just a lot of guys up there, and Luka, I think, is the clear priority. So it sort of just pushes McCollum back to where I'm playing him, 25 to 30%, and I'm fine with that. It's a perfectly fine spot. He's going to get a lot of work with those guys out.
All right, Joe Val, another obvious starter for today, 7,800 on DK. 7,600 on FanDuel. I think he looks great, particularly on FanDuel at 21% ownership. I'm getting to a bit more. I just think he's going to be forced to have to play 30 minutes, barring any sort of foul trouble, where I thought that he could get played off before. They don't have the bodies to do what they wanted to do if this is a competitive game. I think Joe Val ends up being out there. I do now have him at 30 minutes. I'm a big fan of Joe Val for today.
Yeah, so am I, but I'm actually not getting that much. Like, we haven't projected for 17% ownership. I got like 12%. I think it really just comes down to how much Porzingis I'm getting, how much DeAndre Ayton I'm getting, and then also using some value guys at center, whether that's guys from the Clippers, Isaiah Stewart, Larry Nance from this game. So it's another one where, like, at the moment, I'm a little below the field, but it's not because of anything I see or anything like I think. It's just sort of how it worked out. Wouldn't be surprised if I get more by lock. But you do see a nice bump in usage for him with those guys out. About a 26.7% usage rate last year when he played with McCollum and without Ingram and Zion. So you're talking about a guy in a really good spot that is going to get up a lot of shots, and we know is a very, very good rebounder as well.
Shouts to Jorge for the 10 gifted subs. Always awesome to have you around here. Thank you so much for making it better for everybody else. Also, 2,000 people here, 253 likes. Let's run that bad boy up to 350 right now. No reason we can't just pile the likes on to this show. Let's have the conversation. Who are the other three starters for the Pelicans? It seems to me like Trey Murphy is a lock, 4,800 on DraftKings, 5,600 on FanDuel. When I say a lock, I mean a lock to be in the starting lineup, not a lock to play in DFS. Would you agree that Murphy is like essentially definitely one of the starters?
Murphy is the one that I am most confident in starting. Yeah.
Okay. 30% owned for Murphy on DK, 15 on FanDuel, where he's 5,600. I don't really like him all that much on FanDuel. Do you like him on DraftKings?
Yeah, he's in like 40 something percent of my lineups right now. The price tag's okay at 4,800, but he just fits in. Like we've already alluded to it. There's several centers that we like. There's a lot of guards we want to pay up for. It's just so easy to be plugging in these cheap forwards because you just don't have good forwards to pay for on the slate. So it just becomes really easy to go there. We have Murphy with about a 20% chance of being optimal at 27% ownership. You're just going to get some really solid lineups with him. He's about a 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute guy, but if he's going to play 30 plus minutes, which I think is pretty likely, he's just going to look good.
I think Najee Marshall and Larry Nance are going to be the other two starters. You could tell me that it's Devontae Graham or Alvarado, and I could see that being one of those guys as well. Let's just put it out there now. Like, how do you feel about the rest of this team? Because we're seeing Marshall get 16% ownership. We're seeing Nance at 15. These are all DraftKings numbers. Alvarado at 20. On the FanDuel side, Nance is at 14. Marshall's at 4.5 as a $3,900 small forward. That's very clearly my favorite GPP option. Alvarado's at 2300 or at 23%, 3,700. That scares me a little bit more. What do you think you're doing here with the rest of the Pelicans?
Probably just getting over the field on all of it is the way it's looking right now. Larry Nance, I'm coming in around the field at the moment, 15 to 16% ownership there. I have like 18%. He's already 5K. So like there's clearly upside there. We know he's around a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy and should get some more minutes here, but it's not like you're getting him at a dirt cheap price. But then Alvarado, 4,200. We have him projected for 21 to 22 DraftKings points, 16% ownership. I'm getting a little bit above the field there. Najee Marshall at 3,200. I'm with you. I'm not confident in who the other starters are, but Marshall is one of my guesses. He's around a 0.85 fantasy point per minute guy at 3,200 with MPE on DraftKings. So we have him projected for 15 to 16%. I'm getting like 20 to 25%, which perfectly fine with. And then Devontae Graham, 4,400. I don't feel good about him at all, but he's also projected for like 6% ownership. And could he be a second scorer on this team tonight? Absolutely. Or third scorer behind Joval and McCollum? Absolutely, especially if he gets hot early. So it's a spot where I'm the least confident in him of those guys, especially assuming that we get the starting lineup correct. But so is the field, and there's still plenty of production that's going to need to be had from the Pels.
I'm really curious to see the balance of ownership here between Marshall and Alvarado, because we've got it at 24-4 on FanDuel with Marshall with Alvarado leading the way there. Basically, I'm just flip-flopping that right now. I wouldn't mind getting to a little bit more Alvarado, but 23% owned. Like if Jose Alvarado's in a quarter of the lineups on FanDuel, that's kind of scary to me.
Yeah. And for what it's worth on DraftKings, identical 15.7% ownership projections on Alvarado and Marshall.
Oh, did we get an update over the past 15, 20 minutes or so? We must have.
Maybe I didn't refresh.
37 minutes ago, Doncic.
I mean, we got an update right before the show. I was looking at the wrong thing, though. I hadn't refreshed the Boom Bust tool. Alvarado's at 20.4%.
Yeah.
Marshall's at 16.2.
I'm going to grab that updated ownership just to make sure that I'm quoting the right stuff, because Luka is owned significantly less. Oh, no, I actually have this right. I'm looking at DraftKings and not FanDuel. Yeah, I actually have the most recent update. So everything I said is true. After that, I think Jackson Hayes sees some run, 3,600 on DK, 3,800 on FanDuel. Could he fall into 22 minutes today? Maybe. Probably don't care too much. Dyson Daniels is probably going to get out there finally. He's all defense right now, not a lot of offense. That's not going to be a way that I'm trying to go. He is the flat minimum. Willie Hernan-Gomez might see a rotation at center. I don't find that all that appealing. I don't have many things else that I want to say about the Pelicans.
No, neither do I. I mean, obviously keep an eye out for that starting lineup. Anybody that is in the starting lineup probably gets less usage than if they were coming off the bench, but you can also feel better about their minutes. So it ends up kind of coming out in the wash, I think.
Anything else for the Pels? or Dallas?
No.
Alrighty, folks, we got to talk a little bit about the sponsor of this video. That is BetMGM. And the only way that we can talk about BetMGM is if you guys hit the like button and run that number north of 400. So I know this read, if you've heard it lately, has sounded kind of weird because I send you guys over and make you guys bet on an NHL money line. Not so fast. We're going to do this the right way now. If you're in a legal state and you have not signed up at BetMGM yet, there is a link in the description of the video. Click it, head on over, make a deposit, put down $10 on any NBA money line. If you want to make it like the most safe thing you could do, the best thing you could do is take the Clippers tonight money line. If you want to just take a long shot, go for it. It's only $10. Here's what happens. You do that, as long as a three-pointer gets made in that game, which I'd imagine the last time a three wasn't made in an NBA game was 30 years ago. So I think you should feel pretty safe. You're going to get $200 in free bets just from that happening. It's an absolute no-brainer. If you're looking to get into sports betting, if you're looking to just have a little bit of a bankroll get built, there's no better way to do it than what is essentially a risk-free proposition that will only cost you $10 to start. And it might not cost you $1 at all if you just simply win that bet. Take advantage. Link in the description. Head on over. $10 on any NBA money line. It's got to be before the game starts. That's going to get you $200 in free bets. Well,
we did forget one guy that could just screw up the New Orleans rotation if Hayes got the start, which again, we're not expecting, but he played 3 minutes last game. But last year we saw them start him alongside Joval quite a bit.
Okay, let's just walk through that for 30 seconds. If Jackson Hayes starts, you would assume that's going to be coming at the expense of Larry Nance starting, at which point Nance is then not all that interesting as a play. You probably got to cut him down a couple minutes, and then Jackson Hayes becomes a interesting value option.
Yeah, especially with the respective salaries. You know, Nance at $5K can still get his minutes. Like, for example, if Jackson Hayes starts alongside Joval, maybe Billy Hernangomez isn't even in the rotation. Nance is just the backup center. Still gets decent minutes, but like he's $5K, so it's going to be a pretty dicey play off the bench. Whereas if Jackson Hayes is starting at 3,600, that's going to look really good.
All right. Time for more confusion. It's the Clippers, 8.5-point favorites in OKC. I think the line is down to 8 now. We'll start on the Clippers side, where I don't have a clue who's going to start or play for this team, other than everybody that's active probably plays. Norm Powell is 36% and 48% on DraftKings and FanDuel. Robert Covington is pulling roughly 40% ownership. Batum is like 20% on both sites. Kawhi is getting 20% ownership on FanDuel and mostly unplayable on DraftKings. Zubats is 16% owned on both sites. Terrence Mann is getting some love. John Wall is getting some love. Start wherever you want, because I don't know where to start.
Norman Powell is the guy that I'm getting the most of here, and I don't feel great about it, but you know, this is somebody that over the last couple of seasons has averaged 0.89 DraftKings points per minute. Obviously, Kawhi is a high usage guy, but we're not expecting full minutes from Kawhi. There's no Paul George. Powell can just sort of do everything when he's on the floor. So he looks really good. You know, 3,900 on FanDuel looks great. DraftKings right now, if the slate started, he would be my second highest owned player there as well at 4,800. Again, just a value forward option. Those are really useful on this slate because that is not the position where I'm looking to pay up. I don't even know that it's an option to pay up. I'm pretty sure everybody expensive is a center or a guard. So Powell just looks really good. Robert Covington at 4,100, one way or another, probably finds his way into more minutes. They've been using him as the backup to Zubats, but obviously you're talking about a wing. Like, there's no reason Covington can't play alongside Zubats. There's no spacing issues there. Like, that's what he's good at anyway. So at 4,100, I think he runs into more minutes. $3,200 Nicholas Batum, probably playing low 20s in minutes, but at 3,200 certainly gets into some lineups there. He's getting 22.5% ownership. I think those are the three main guys, just, you know, getting to those guys as value pieces. Like I said, predominantly getting to Powell, but also getting to Covington, getting to Batum, like 20 to 25% on both of those guys. I think Zubats looks good. If you can get there. The issue, you know, is just the opportunity cost at the position again. But I think his minutes are a little bit more secure just because they are short a couple of bodies. Maybe, you know, and there's no real reason he can't stay out there. We saw huge minutes from him already once this year. So he looks reasonable if you can get there. In the backcourt, I'm expecting Jackson and Wall basically to split minutes. Not a ton of interest in either guy, getting to a little bit of like getting like 5% John Wall, getting like 1% Reggie Jackson, getting, to a little bit of Terrence Mann. Nothing that really stands out amongst those guys, I don't think. Mostly just looking to use the Fords there as value.
Where do we go here? Do you have an expected starting lineup? Zubats.
Yeah, pretty much Zubats and Jackson. Jackson, Powell, Zubats. I have no idea.
I think Amir Coffey is going to be one of those guys.
Could be.
I don't know what that means, but I do.
My guess was Kennard.
I think we're going to go Jackson, Powell, Coffey, Batum, Zubats, Covington, Zubats.
If I had to guess, I would go Jackson, Kennard, Powell, Batum, Zubats.
Okay. None of it's
but like
fun.
It could easily be Mann. It could easily be Coffey. It could be Covington. I'm assuming that they keep him with that bench group, but they don't have to.
It could be Kawhi.
Right. Oh yeah. That's the other one. Like, he started the second half last game. There's no reason he can't start the first half here.
D Holmes said Covington over Batum. I don't know if you mean that from a starting standpoint or just like from a choice perspective, but I'm pretty sure Robert Covington is going to be the backup for Ivica Zubats, which means that I don't think that he's going to be I'd be surprised if Covington starts alongside of him. Like, Covington off the bench seems very likely to me just because of what they have left.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also wanted to mention, I'm getting like 16% Kennard, have Coffey in like a lineup. But yeah, it's kind of like the Pelicans. Like, there's just a bunch of cheap guys here, and a lot of them are very similar in terms of their per minute production too. So a lot of it is just, you're kind of just at the whims of how this game plays out and who happens to be shooting hot.
What's the most minutes you have projected to someone?
I don't know.
Okay. I didn't did you go 30 plus on anybody? Because I've got like this really narrow 22 to 28 band on basically everybody.
I mean, the most minutes we have projected for somebody is 29 to Powell.
Okay. Yeah, I went to 28 on Powell. A lot of 26s, 24s, 22 to Wall and Mann, and then 16 to Coffey. I think Coffey's going to end up getting like the Keith Bogans where he plays at the beginning of the first and third and doesn't really stay out there all that much.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, we have him at 13 minutes. Yeah, we have Powell at 29. We have Covington at 28. That seems a little high to me.
Yeah, I have 26.
But yeah, I expect most guys to just kind of be in that like 22 to 24 range.
Are there any rules that you're setting for the Clippers? No Jackson, no Wall. I don't think you're going to get it, so I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I mean, I said it so I couldn't get Jackson and Wall together. What did I do? I have one named Clips bench. So I said at most 2 of Kennard, Mann, Coffey, Batum.
Okay.
Which I think I'm good. Like, I just wouldn't want 3 of those guys together, I don't think.
Would you be willing to play Zubats and Covington in the same lineup together?
Yeah, that's a rule that I normally have, but I got rid of it just because I do think you could certainly see Covington play a few minutes alongside him.
Yeah. This is one of the more complicated things we'll ever talk about. This makes me feel like the Grizzlies from like 4 years ago when everybody just played like 22 to 26 minutes for like the final 2 months of the season. Yeah. Only this is game 4. All right. Well, if you thought the Clippers were a problem, when we did this show originally today, Josh Giddey was out, as was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been added back to the injury report as questionable. Generally speaking, when you see someone become a late add to the injury report, they are more likely to play than that questionable tag shows. I now have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in. I know that you also have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in. We're going to talk about $8,800 Shai on DraftKings. He's $9,600 on FanDuel. I think he's one of the best plays of the day.
I think he's up there. It's tough just because there are so many guard plays. Like CJ McCollum already looks really good with those guys out. Luka obviously looks great. But yeah,
Do you like
SGA
Shea?
without Josh
Compare
Giddey
Shea to
is-
CJ McCollum quickly. Who do you prefer?
I have about the same of both. I
Okay.
have I have SGA projected 2 points higher, but he's also more expensive.
Okay.
Um,
What's the ownership on CJ?
28%.
Okay.
Point guard only. SGA is at 16%, also point guard only, $800 more expensive.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, let's talk about Shea, because this dude, when Josh Giddey's not on the floor, smashes.
Yeah, he does. I was pulling up those numbers from last year, but without Giddey on the floor, SGA last year, 34.5% usage rate, 1.42 DraftKings points per minute, 34.6% assist percentage. He looks great.
Yeah. Played, and that's 500. I've got it at 593 minutes played last year, where he and Dort are active, and Josh Giddey is not on the floor. 35% usage rate. Like, just this dude just does it. I'm a big fan of Shea. I'm getting to a lot of him. I anxiously await him getting ruled out, which is going to irritate me to no end. The only saving grace for me, if this happens, is that he's 9,600. So, like, Devin Booker is 8,500. I have maneuverability there. And, like, there are guys that I can get to in that general area that doesn't make it totally awful. And I assume I could actually make things work and get $800 higher and get to Steph if I really needed to, but we'll see where we end up there.
And just to clarify, because it probably went overlooked by a lot of people watching, SGA was ruled out a couple of days ago. He was upgraded to questionable earlier, so I'm assuming he's playing.
Yeah, agreed. SGA playing also downgrades basically everyone else. No one's getting any ownership now on Oklahoma City in comparison to where they were going to be, like the value play du jour. Lou Dort does not see the same sort of shot profile when Shea is healthy. He's already 6K. I don't find him all that interesting. I think Trey Mann's still going to see a decent chunk of time, 5,500 on DraftKings, 4,800 on FanDuel. So I do have some interest there. Do you want anything from OKC now?
Not really. I mean, Dort is still decent with small forward eligibility, but doesn't look nearly as good, assuming SGA plays. We have him as the second highest owned guy on the team at like 9%. Trey Mann's at 7%. Both of those guys, Dort and Mann, I would have really wanted to get to if SGA wasn't going to play. But with him in, it just becomes a lot more difficult to get there. Neither one is really inexpensive. They would have looked like good values, if all of that usage was going to open up, but doesn't look like he's going to. Muscala at 3,900, like if you want to try and get lucky over, 20 minutes or whatever it's going to be, go for it. But at center, I'm not planning on doing it. We have him projected for about 15 minutes. Like, he's a good point per minute guy, but it's really hard to get there, I think, with the opportunity cost of the position.
Only guy that I'm getting to now with any sort of regularity is Trey Mann. Do you have him projected well at this point still?
Because
I don't feel great about his role for this team, but I think he's just going to become Giddey.
Like 23 to 24 DraftKings points. I have like 6%, 7%.
Okay. Yeah, I got him at 24/7 on FanDuel. I gave him 30 minutes. I think he's just going to take the Giddey role, and if this can stay competitive, just play the whole way with Shea at the 2. He's 8% owned, so I am getting a little bit north of that. Not that I feel great about anything that's happening here, but I'm firing up Shea pretty aggressively. And I think that's the only talking point. It's a very different Thunder team than it was earlier today.
To your point, too, like I wouldn't mind getting more than the 23% I have. The issue is just I'm getting a lot of Chris Paul, which I don't love, but I also understand it because he's only 7K. Obviously, I'm getting a lot of Luka. I'm getting a lot of McCollum. The other issue is they're all just point guard only.
Yeah. Shea's got shooting guard on FanDuel, by the way.
Okay, yeah. On DraftKings, he doesn't. So, like, you're kind of limited with what you can do. But, yeah, I would love to be getting more than 22%. It's just tough.
Anything else?
Cade is there. You need to get the Cade. You need some Dinwiddie, some of the value guards. Like, there's just a lot of opportunity costs to the position. And outside of Luka from a raw point standpoint, and then Paul, I think just because he's sort of by himself at that 7K price range, they just look similar enough where I'm spreading it out.
Let's say we get to 7:30 and Shea gets ruled out. Do you have a plan of attack for removing him from your lineups? Like, do you have a quick swap or anything that you've spotted that you want to try to make?
I mean, I would get to more Mann. I'd get to more Dort.
Okay.
The Mavs game will have already started. So, well, I'll already have a bunch of Luka, but where I had SGA, some of that probably becomes like Booker/Curry.
Okay. Sometimes it's just easy to be like, once you see it, do this and then figure it out afterwards. But I don't think that there's that like natural one-to-one swap that you can just quickly make. Alrighty. Nothing else here. Clips and OKC. I mean, this is just going to be a weird ass game.
Yes, it is.
All right. Final thing we need to talk about. I believe this is the final day that we can talk about it. Hardwood is the promo code. Get 10 days of Stokastic plus Platinum for just $10. That covers everything we have. It's the NBA, MLB for the rest of the season. We're going to be talking NFL, PGA, MMA, college football, soccer. Probably missing some things too. Projections, ownership, all of our technical tools. So boom, bust, top stacks for football, all that kind of good stuff. We got it all behind the paywall. Again, $10 for 10 days. You can go to stokastic.com/promos and get a little bit more details if you want them. Make it a little bit easier for you guys to sign up. And hit that like button. 2,860 people. Massive crew in here today. Only 440 likes. I don't really think that's good enough, guys. You guys are better than that. You know it. 500 right now. Hit that thumbs up. We'll cross that 500 threshold as we get into the final game of the night. Late night hammer, 10 o'clock tip-off. Golden State Warriors, 1.5 point dogs in Phoenix, 227 total. Golden State's really easy to talk about. Steph, Wiggins, Green, Poole, Thompson. You want a couple shares of Looney? Sure. I think they all look like really, really similar to each other, and they're all kind of comparably owned. Do you have a preferred Warrior?
I mean, my preference is Curry, but I'm also just not getting there. Again, opportunity cost there. As far as Golden State guys on DraftKings right now, the highest owned one I have is Clay at like 11%. And then it's just sort of, 5% Draymond, 3% Moody, 3% Looney. I'm not getting 1% Curry and Wiggins, 1% Poole. I'm just not getting to a lot. And it's not, this slate's kind of just tough, especially for a 4-game slate. Because again, it's not that I dislike the Golden State guys or anything. It's just that I think they are pretty much correctly priced. They're healthy. So, SGA, assuming he goes, just has the advantage over them because he's playing without Giddey. McCollum has the advantage because he's playing without everybody. Chris Paul is at a different price point than Curry, for example. And he's just going to project better than guys like Jordan Poole and Clay because of minutes. So, it just really becomes difficult for me to get to Golden State, especially when it's not like they're going to be unowned or anything. If you told me that there was no ownership coming in here, it would be one thing, but 16% coming to Draymond, 16% coming to Poole, 17% coming to Clay, 11% to Wiggins, 10% to Curry. They just don't grade out as under-owned enough for me to really want to be sacrificing to get to them. If it just so happens that, Steph goes out there and has one of his games, then so be it. But, yeah, then, I won't win, and I probably won't win anyway. So it's, it is what it is. I'm just not getting to a lot of Golden State.
If you want to win, your best bet should just be to take a look at everybody that scores the most and then don't have them. Apparently that's a path towards the top. At least it was yesterday. I'm going to put this out there right now because I generally say that I don't get to much Steph Curry. And that had been the case for the longest time. I am getting to Steph right now. He is 15% owned on FanDuel. He's 10,400. I don't like that price. But at that low ownership on a 4-game slate, I'm actually doubling up on Steph. It makes me uncomfortable because on the surface, I don't like rostering him, but it's not stopping me from getting to Andrew Wiggins, to Luka Doncic. It's not stopping me from getting to Shai, who's the 3rd most expensive player on FanDuel. It's not stopping me from getting to CJ McCollum, who's the 5th most expensive player. But I am getting to Steph. I would not be mad at all if he has an outlier game today and it's the day that I finally have him. I'm letting you guys know right now, because I have Steph Curry, I assume he's putting in a floor game. It's probably Jordan Poole season, or maybe it's the day that Clay hits 10 threes in 26 minutes. But I just wanted to put it out there. I've got Steph. And I have no interest in the rest of this team. I barely have Wiggins. I barely have Draymond. I barely have Poole. I barely have Clay. I don't have Looney. If you're trying to go to the bench, like there's just It's weird with DiVincenzo out. I was like, oh, Moody's going to step into some minutes. He's shooting guard, small forward. He's flat 3K. It's like there's 15 other guys that you can play today now because of this slate that you don't have to like dumpster dive on Moses Moody or the bottom of the Warriors. Do you like any of the bench Warriors?
No. I mean, I got to like 3% Moody, but that's just him randomly showing up in a few lineups because it's a 4-game slate. He sucks from a point per minute basis. And if I ended up getting 0, that would be perfectly fine with me. There's nothing I'm prioritizing there. It's just guys randomly falling into lineups occasionally.
Let's see. I don't see anything on Twitter that I need to touch on right now. Oh, wait, is that real? Not that this matters. Oh, I read the name. No, I didn't read the name wrong. Not that this matters for today, but tomorrow. Devin Vassell, doubtful.
Yeah, I saw that.
Good, I guess, although he was great yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been playing a lot of him, and he's been good outside of week 1. Somebody said Batum starting. I haven't seen that confirmed.
No, so. It's not on my Twitter. That's why I said, let me check my Twitter. I think that might just be an opinion statement. Jake White with the super chat. First night as a member last night. Crushed cash. Top score in all double ups. Best tools, best analysis in the biz. Jake, congrats, man. That's great. Way to dominate cash. And I agree. It is the best tools. Adam is the best tool. I have the best analysis in the business. Let's talk Phoenix Suns. It's pretty cut and dry. Booker, Bridges, Paul, Ayton, Cam Johnson. Those are the starters. 29, 20, 30, 35, 15. That's the ownership. These guys are soaking up a lot of ownership, and I think every single one of them is basically warranted for that ownership. I really like the Sun side of this one, which kind of bothers me for not liking Golden State. It creates some really weird roster construction.
Yeah, but I think what it is that, so for me, I'm getting to a ton of DeAndre Ayton. I'm getting to a ton of Chris Paul. And then I'm just getting to, like 10 to 15% Booker, Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges. So, and I'm fine with all of those. Devin Booker scares me, not having a lot because he's Devin Booker. But it also just sort of makes sense to me, even, in the context of not getting to a lot of Golden State. And the reason I kind of touched on it with Golden State too, DeAndre Ayton is just going to project better than somebody like Jordan Poole at that price point. Chris Paul at $800 more is just going to project better than Jordan Poole. And then the rest of these guys, Booker, I don't get as much of because I do prefer SGA. I do prefer McCollum. Paul's at the better price point. And then also I just want to prioritize paying up for Luka. So that kind of pushes Devin Booker down, and then Mikal Bridges and Cameron Johnson are both just two more 5K-ish wings that you're just rotating through lineups. So it makes sense to me, like why I'm getting so much more Phoenix exposure, because there is no real equivalent to Ayton and Paul, I don't think, on the Golden State side. The guy that you really want to play is nearly $10,000. And then Thompson, Draymond, Poole are all these like quality plays, but not quite as good as Ayton and Paul, in my opinion.
I'm getting to Bridges. I'm getting to Ayton. I'm getting to Cam Johnson. I'm a little lighter on Paul. He's 7,400 on FanDuel, but still 20+% for me. I'm the only guy that I'm aggressively light on is the one that's pulling the most ownership on FanDuel. That is Devin Booker. It is scary. He's 8,500, 48% owned. I'm basically just turning Booker into SGA and hoping I win the head-to-head battle between the two. And I'm willing to take my chances on that. Booker also just shooting guard eligible, which complicates matters a little bit more. Like it's a little bit less flexibility. So I really like the starters for the Suns. I really don't have any interest in the bench players for the Suns.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well.
All right, let's sum it up. Who are your favorite plays on DraftKings for tonight?
Luka, Powell, Ayton, Murphy, Porzingis.
Okay. Guys,
I'll also throw in McCollum and SGA just because I do also really like them.
Guys I'm getting a lot of on FanDuel that aren't pulling all that much ownership. SGA, Spencer Dinwiddie, Joval, Curry, Kyle Kuzma. Happy there. I am a little bit light on Devin Booker. I'm a little bit light on Chris Paul. I'm a little bit light on Bradley Beal. That's some of the more heavy chalk. I am a little bit light on Norm Powell as of right now. We'll see where we end up when we get to lock. Adam, anything else you want to touch on before we turn this one over to live before lock?
Just be sure to keep an eye out for lineups because I don't anticipate it making a huge difference just because playing time's still going to be really volatile, but certainly the potential for, some unexpected things with the Pels and the Clippers.
Yeah. Yes, you can get garuba'd if you aren't paying attention today.
Right.
So make sure you're paying attention. Guys, thank you for being here. 550 likes is great. 3,000 people in here to watch the show is fantastic. Live before lock coming up next. They're going to take you all the way up until 7 and potentially beyond. At least I think it might be till 7:30. Good luck, everybody. Win some money. We'll see you tomorrow.
I'm done. Done. No more. Out. Get the hell off of my screen. I know what's going to happen now. Fucking boss is going to be back on me. It was rough. Rough yesterday. No more Tyrese Maxey ever. Banned from the show. Holy shit, that was awful. I knew it was going to be awful because Maxey set the tone. Evan Fournier disappeared. Rockets win the game. I'm not happy. Not happy at all. My Phillies are in the World Series. The Sixers finally win a game. The Eagles are 6-0, and I'm more upset about Tyrese Maxey unable to knock down 3 threes in a game than anything else. All right? Why? Because that's going to happen. And I don't want that to happen. And I'm upset when you lose money. So I appreciate you rolling right back with me. Thank you. Maxey's out. The boss is in. 5 bets in 5 minutes. Just hit the thumbs up button, please. Please, please. Subscribe. If not for me, for everybody else here that's actually making you money. I kid. We're going to make some money right now. We're going to start the clock coming up in a second as well. Just to give you an idea, we bounce around, give you 5 bets in 5 minutes. We have the clock going. And from there, we take a breath, we recap, we look at everything else we can find. It's going to be fun. All right. So I want you to just take a second here, stretch out, crack the knuckles. Let's start the clock now. 5 bets in 5 minutes. We begin. We're actually going to hit you 2 times over in this god-awful Pistons-Wizards game. Let's start over 1.5 plus 150. That's the best number we can find across the board for Jaden Ivey to knock down 2 threes. That's it, just 2 threes. Want to take a look at the game log? Look at this, 2 for 3, 2 for 4. He went 1 for 4, but still, he's had enough volume here to knock down what I believe to be 2 threes on a decent night. Good night shooting, this is an absolute lock. So I want to target Jaden Ivey, a guy who's definitely going to be scoring a lot. He is a small, bright spot on this Pistons team alongside Cade Cunningham, and it is fun to watch Jaden play for sure. But the points props have caught up, and that's why I wanted to stay away from Ivey's points. At 14.5 minus 140, he's a bucket. I think threes at plus money will be the way to go here more so than anything else. Hey, Cade Cunningham, just mentioned him. Just around 8 assists, this man is averaging 6.5 at minus 105 against a Wizards team that's not necessarily going to put the clamps down on him by any means. So I really like getting to 7 assists minimum for Cade Cunningham tonight in a game in which the Pistons are going to give up a lot of points. There's going to be a lot of pacing, a lot of speed on this game here, maybe even too much for the Wizards. Probably not, of course, but point being here is that there isn't going to be a concerted defensive effort that's going to pay off by any means by Washington to take distributor Cunningham out of the game. That's not going to mean an overcompensation with rebounds or anything like that. I think Ivy knocking down outside shots, the Pistons scoring points, although they'll give up a ton, all correlates to Cunningham scoring around 18, 20 points and getting around 7, 8 assists. And that is over the 6.5 number, especially at minus 105. That's where I want to be on that side. The winning.
What is going on, everybody? It is time for another episode of the Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock Show. Jordan, that was a very odd countdown. Was it for you also, Eric, where you couldn't hear any sound until it started?
Yep.
Yeah. Jordan, you screwed it up. This is why I knew he wasn't ready. I knew he wasn't ready yet.
Also, he is exponentially lower than he's ever been before in the Zoom bar. He is legitimately
Yeah, that's not even close. Like, he's putting Gundacker to shame right now with how low he has his camera set up.
It's like right around here.
Yeah,
Just
but
pretty
it's
close.
lower. You can only see the top of his forehead. He's very
Yeah,
upset.
half of his nose is gone. I can't even do it.
Yeah, Jordan is not in a good mood at all because there's a cat in his apartment that likes him, which is the worst thing that's ever happened to him. A cat that enjoys his company.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't had any other company there in years. But let's go.
Jordan, response? All right, there we go. That is a 10-8 round for one Eric Lindquist. Guys, while you come into
submission,
like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Those likes, maybe they'll get Jordan Klein in a better mood. We are sponsored by BetMGM today. We're going to present you guys later on with an NBA offer from BetMGM where you can get $200 for free. You're going to get $200 for free if you're signing up BetMGM for the first time. We'll talk more about that later, but we've got an NBA slate today, Eric. There have been a lot of players ruled out to this point, most notably Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram. SGA is currently questionable. So let's start with that because he's the biggest name that's listed as questionable on the injury report. What do you make of this?
Kawhi Leonard just got ruled out.
Oh, Kawhi's out now. All right.
Let's go.
Right,
what a stupid day. 4 Clippers every lineup. Here we are.
All right. So screw all that because I'm just sitting here and I'm telling you, hey, SGA is questionable. That's the biggest news on the injury report. I think the second I finished the sentence, Kawhi got ruled out. So let's try to figure out what is going to happen with the Clippers because in addition to Kawhi being out, something else we knew in advance, there is going to be no Paul George today. Now, do we think there's a chance that John Wall gets ruled out too?
Yes. Tim Hardaway Jr. just got ruled out.
Yeah, well, he was doubtful. So.
I know, but I'm just saying it's like officially like everything's happening at once. There's an outside chance. I mean, I have to get everybody. I mean, don't you just bet Oklahoma City if you can right now? Still, I mean, it was plus 9.5 at open. It dropped to 8. Now it's probably going to drop another 1.5. I mean, this is just silliness, pure silliness.
The line is currently 5, by the way.
Oh my God.
Yeah, line is currently 5. So, I mean, the way that the Clippers are approaching this game is, I don't know if they just assume it's a game they're going to win easily, or they might just really not give a shit about the regular season, which I think is fairly likely. If we look at this team, Kawhi Leonard, his injury history, Paul George, he's been banged up in the past. John Wall, we don't know what his status is going to be. I just kind of have to assume right now he's playing because what else do we do? But immediate thoughts here. Norman Powell, I think, is obviously one of the top value plays, if not the top value play on this slate, because just with Paul George being out and not even before we were taking the Kawhi Leonard news into effect, both FanDuel and DraftKings, he was my most rostered player, Norman Powell. I don't know how to change that. He's still going to be my most rostered player. Is it going to be the same for you, do you think?
He's going to be more owned, and he was not my most rostered player. Luka was, but I mean, my God, this got just ridiculous in every way, shape, or form. As I said, I mean, I kind of was joking. 4 Clippers every lineup. It legitimately is going to be 4 Clippers just about every lineup. Your most expensive guy touching the floor tonight is Ivica Zubac at 5,900. Reggie Jackson, John Wall. I mean, Norman Powell's 4,800. Luke Kennard, best 3-point shooter in the league last season, just pure average. He led in 3-point percentage last season. 4,200. Robert Covington, 4,100. I think the guy who becomes more interesting to me, who I was getting about 0 of compared to the field was getting there. I mean, Terrence Mann is 4K. Nicholas Batum. We're going to see what that starting rotation is because everybody who starts is going to be a jam. And I think the best tournament plays become everybody who doesn't start on the Clippers, but they don't have enough bodies. Like Amir Coffey is now going to be entering more of a meaningful role. We had him in for 13 minutes. Moses Brown, Brandon Boston, we saw in limited time last season, could definitely go get you a bucket. I mean, this is going to be a really, really wonky situation now because, I mean, we're going to have 3 or 4 of these guys in every single lineup.
I'm going to have a lot of exposure to them. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to the Pelicans also because we've got a Pelican situation with them also where a lot of guys have gotten ruled out. I do wonder this. And we'll talk about SGA in a second also. And then I think we had a super chat, which we could answer really quickly as well. Kid Stu wants to know SGA or Beal. I have more exposure to Beal today. I guess because he asked the question, we might as well address it. My assumption is that SGA plays today. I don't know that for sure, but I am assuming that he's in. I'm getting some exposure to him, but I prefer Bradley Beal. Beal is one of my favorite plays in like that upper mid-tier type pricing range. But here's what I think happened with SGA. We were talking about it right before the show started. So he was ruled out last game, but it was the tail end of a back-to-back. He was dealing with soreness, and he warmed up to play in the game today. He comes out, the injury report comes out anyway. He's listed as out. And I saw a Thunder beat reporter mention online that even though he was listed as out, he still expected SGA to play. And his assumption was just that the injury report had not been updated from the game before. So obviously we don't know for sure that that's the case, but it seems to me like SGA probably more likely to play than not. Is that also what you were assuming? And then Beal or SGA?
Yeah, I saw somebody else on Twitter had posted something about that earlier, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole. Didn't really matter all that much. All I was able to do was get hedged out of the Clipper bet that I thought made some sense. And I mean, you could go on the other side of it now if it's down to 5. They're still in their current iteration. I don't know now a better basketball team without Kawhi on the floor, but coming into that, just a wild change of circumstance. I think it depends on what site. On FanDuel, there is a massive salary discrepancy between the two. $1,800. $1,800 between SGA and Bradley Beal. Give me Bradley Beal over there. I think that definitely makes some sense. But over on DK, $8,800 for SGA and Bradley Beal, $8,400 coming in with more ownership on the Beal side. I definitely like SGA more. The thing that sucks is that you are giving up a point guard spot, and Luka is such a meaningful part of my lineups. He should be even more meaningful part of your lineups now that we got even more value, or should I say more secure value, because the minutes are just, you're taking 28 minutes away from Kawhi instantly, and those are going to the guys that we already projected out well for. So I think SGA also, if I'm going to get 3-4 Clippers in a lot of my lineups, I kind of want a piece to come along for the ride. And I don't know who else from OKC I really want to be screwing with.
Yeah, so for me, I'm currently overweight to both Beal and SGA in DraftKings relative to what our ownership was projected.
Riddle me that.
Let's see though, because I now I don't even know what guys' ownerships are going to be, because everything is about to be different, right? Everything has gone to shit. Players are getting rolled out. Everything's up in the air. We don't know starting
pets'
lineups.
Heads are falling off.
Jordan wishes. Jordan wishes.
Holy shit.
I mean, he does. Right before we started, he said he was going to kill his sister as a cat.
He's an angry individual. We need to get him classes. We can get those sponsored here at Stokastic.
Yeah, and I can't see his facial reactions right now because I can only see the top of his head and a part of his forehead. But before we started, he was very aggravated. He's yelling, and we're asking what's wrong. He's like, "This cat likes me. It comes up, it sits next to me." Like, it was all of it was very, none of it was malicious at all.
He's so mad at me. He's so mad.
I can't tell. I can't see his facial expression
because he's not reacting. And whenever Jordan Klein doesn't react, he's on tilt. I was having fun. We were having fun, Jordan. I get made fun of every single show.
Eric took you to a Clippers game and got you to sit courtside. Yeah. What was it, 48 hours ago?
Oh, it's on your
God. The worst thing was the audience able to see that? Was the audience able to see that?
You gotta come up on screen and show them your work situation right now.
Yeah, but by the way, you guys will really have empathy for Jordan Klein after seeing this cute cat sitting there doing nothing.
Oh no! Oh, it's so difficult. Oh no!
Is there any way for them to see that, Jordan, or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're off the Duke babysitter list. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I would not let him anywhere near a pet of mine after this experience. I don't have any pets, but if I did, certainly would not be watched by Jordan Klein. Super chat from Michael McKinney. Hello to my favorite duo, 5 must plays on FanDuel. So things are going to be a little bit different, but at the same time, too, I think we could kind of figure out before even getting too deep into some of what the projected ownerships and whatnot are going to be. Luka Doncic, we've got infinite value. He's easy to pay up for.
Yep.
Norman Powell.
Yep.
CJ McCollum for me.
Yep.
Boy, there's so many value plays after that. It's hard
whoever starts on the Clippers, whoever starts, Terrence Mann, Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington, Reggie Jackson, 4,500 for him, Luke Kennard, 3,600. Whoever starts for the Clippers, you're just playing them. You're just playing those guys.
Yeah, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And then let's talk briefly about the Pelicans situation as well, and then we'll go position by position like we normally would do. But first, what is your assumption on what the starting lineup will be for the Pelicans? They closed the game with an extremely obscure starting lineup last game because we didn't know it at the time that Zion was a little bit banged up. They were just being cautious with him. Brandon Ingram was hurt. Jonas Valanciunas just got benched down the stretch of the game. But the reason that Zion didn't come in was actually because he was a little bit banged up. I thought that he had gotten benched just like Joe Val, but that was not the case. What is your assumption for the starting lineup here? I think I might have a contrarian play I like a whole bunch here.
Oh, interesting. I think it's probably going to be CJ McCollum at the point. Najee Marshall and Trey Murphy, 2-3 in some capacity. Larry Nance and Jonas Valanciunas.
So I think Trey Murphy. So I feel really good about 3 starters: McCollum, Trey Murphy, and Valanciunas.
Correct. The other 2 are interchangeable.
The other 2, I think one of them is going to be Jackson Hayes.
See, I knew you were going to say that. Just because they did it last year. I get it.
And the other one I think could potentially start. I think Alvarado's one. I think Devontae Graham is getting slept on this slate. He's a guy that we've seen. I mean, we've seen, and it would kind of be dependent on him starting, but he's really, particularly on FanDuel, he's $3,900. I think there's opportunity for him to play extended minutes with all the guys that are out for them, especially because what are they missing more than anything tonight without Zion and Brandon Ingram? It's offense, not defense. And that's where I kind of think it might make sense to play some of those Alvarado minutes that people might be projecting for to give them to Devontae Graham just to get extra offense on the court. So Devontae Graham is currently, at least before we started, he's projected for 3% ownership. Let's see if we have an ownership update.
I really like that call. He did start 2 games in the preseason. He started the second and third preseason games, but they didn't have Zion. They had a number of starters that were sitting out that third one, but he did play alongside CJ McCollum. So I don't hate that call. That's something that could definitely happen.
It's a 4-game slate. There's a lot of value. Before the Clippers news, he was projected for 4% ownership on DraftKings, 3% on FanDuel. What is going to be like 2% on both sites. Just in the interest of trying to find out who could benefit from this situation that people are not currently getting to. He's the one that stands out to me. And
well, it's going to depend on what time the news drops, because he will not be 2% if he gets announced starting right now.
Sure.
I want it to be after lock. And that's, I will say, out of any show that we have done, period, you should not go anywhere in that half hour after this show. The full 90 minutes are going to be a roller coaster ride this time around. We've got another 77 minutes of this show, and there is going to be so much to talk about for just a 4-game slate.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot going on just because SGA, we're both assuming he plays, but we don't know that for sure. He could end up getting ruled out. We got the Pelicans starting lineup, the Clippers starting lineup, and the show doesn't end just because of the slate locks. Eric and I are going to be sticking around for 30 minutes. We'll be sweating the games. We'll be looking for news. We'll be talking about any bets we like. So definitely stick around for that portion of the show. Like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And be on the lookout for any updates we have to our projections, which are going to be changing a lot. And if you guys don't have access to them, this is your last day to sign up for the hardwood deal. You get 10 days of our projections for $10. Doesn't just cover NBA, covers MLB, NHL, NFL, every DFS sport out there. You get access to all of that for 10 days for just $10. And this is your last day to sign up. So if you've been interested in trying to check out our product and you think that you're not sure if it's for you or not, this is a good low-cost way to get yourself in the door and see if it is for you. All right, let's go position by position now, Eric. And just starting with the guards, how high of a priority is Luka for you today?
Like the highest of high priorities. Like I'm going to be near 100% of him on both sites. I'm playing DraftKings FanDuel, 150 on FanDuel, playing 25 over on DK. He's going to be in almost every single lineup, especially now. Yeah.
So a couple of things. Number one, he's the only expensive player on this slate in terms of like a super pay up option. We don't have the Giannis, we don't have Jokic and Embiid. Like none of those other high end stars are on the slate. And we now have infinity value. We have all of the salary cap to spend. So this might not even be a night where you need that ceiling game from Luka to be in a GPP winning lineup. This could actually be a spot where he might put up a relatively modest game by his standards. He might score 50 fantasy points. And by the way, I haven't projected well over 50, but he might put up 50 and end up being optimal just if a bunch of cheap guys go off. So I'm going to be getting to a lot of Luka just because of that. There's a lot of salary and I don't really know who else I would be spending it on.
Yeah. The other part that I think is probably going slept on, where's all the value at the given moment? It is all, like almost all of it is at the power forward position. Center, you can play a number of the guys like Batum, Covington can slide over to the center position, but almost impossible when you have a guard position that doesn't have the value and you have Luka, there is your only spend up, that I'm not going to get nearly 100% on days like this.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I just find it to be unavoidable. If you guys are playing cash games, must play in cash. You're making a massive error If you don't play Luka, the ceiling is massively high, as is the floor. And then we have all the salary in the world to pay. Like there's no opportunity cost to Luka. There's nothing where we're sacrificing any kind of salary. So Luka to me, very important core play on the slate. And then we've got a bunch of guys in the next tier. Bradley Beal, SGA, Devin Booker, Chris Paul. A lot of those guys that are grouped together. Are any of them higher priorities than the others for you?
I mean, SGA probably is somebody at 8,800 because of how many Clippers I'm going to get to. I mean, because of their prices, I don't think you necessarily have to have a quote unquote run back like you would have in the NFL. But I will say it feels good to know that if this game stays intact, and if I'm going to be getting like normal guys, not Brandon Boston, coming off of that bench or guys of that capacity from the Clipper side in a blowout, like it's good to have SGA, the one guy who I think could keep that game competitive if I'm going to have tons of Clippers in there. Also, I'm feeling a little bit biased because I just sat down and watched him eviscerate the Clippers. But Devin Booker and Chris Paul, both of these guys, feel like they're pieces that I want to get to over the field. Steph Curry is so hard to get to on these kind of slates, and he's getting 15% ownership over on FanDuel. That feels a little bit off to me. 10% over on DK seems a little bit more appropriate, given he is 9,900 over there. And I get why it just feels like people still get to Steph Curry in some capacities in these kind of spots. And there's going to be the days he goes for 65 or 70 and I'm torched, but I am much more likely to just jam Luka today and just get all of it there. And then hope that the 10 to 15% of people who play Steph Curry end up finding some kind of a floor there and I can bypass them. It just doesn't feel very necessary. But getting into that other range of player, Bradley Beal on FanDuel, I talked about him before, sub 8K, that is just kind of broken. And then your boy CJ McCollum, he kind of feels like somebody you just kind of want to get to, even though right now at 28%, I might be looking at getting a little bit lower just because if SGA is going to play, how much I like these Clippers, I'll probably get to a little bit more now.
Yeah, I do think that definitely makes some sense there. In terms of, for me, for McCollum, it's as simple as this. Everybody else that is stars that usually take up a bunch of usage are out for the Pelicans. So it just kind of makes sense that a lot of that usage would have to filter to him because who else is it going to go to in the backcourt? Who else is going to have the ball in their hands? That's why I said it could be Devontae Graham, who either starts or comes off the bench as a low owned value option. But other than that, I mean, you look at the usage situation. Who else are you even confident is going to take shots on the Pelicans?
Oh, Trey Murphy, he's 13.5 for a points prop over on Prize Picks. It's 14.5 across the entire industry. If you go to the preseason, I mean, if we just give him a minutes bump in general, he's played 24, 20, and then he played 40 minutes with just a 12.5% usage rate in that overtime game against Utah. I expect that usage to get more around the 20% area like we saw in the preseason. He started 3 games throughout the preseason. And I think most people remember from last year, if you brought the Trey Murphy, played him at 2%, talked about him on the show. I had 40% of him and he went for a 50 burger out of the middle of nowhere. Shout out Rinpack because he was definitely the guy who got me on that play on the Slate Starter podcast the night before. But Trey Murphy is just somebody that I think is going to take a bigger second year leap here for this team. Has been very serviceable off the bench in limited minutes. We saw 40 minutes without these other guys out there. I do expect a larger minutes load for him. He's going to be a big part of my lineups, regardless of how this Clippers news ends up panning out.
All right, we've got some questions in our Discord chat, so we'll get to these and we'll talk about some of the values at the guard position. First from Jets World, playing a single bullet in the 555 on DK. Is there priority play in the first game of the slate? If the SGA news isn't out along with the, okay. So basically wants to know, if he's only playing one lineup today, is there anybody he really needs to be playing from the Wizards Pistons game, or should he be leaving those lineup spots open for the later games? If you're only playing one lineup, I would say leave it open for the later games.
Yep, I'm probably on DK full fading that game now. On FanDuel, I'll probably get my exposure to it because you have Kristaps Porzingis, who is multi-positional eligible, 7,400, different floor, different salary cap structure, 9 position players as opposed to 8. But on DK, everybody's priced efficiently. And on a slate like this, we have so many inefficiencies coming up in the next 2 games. You want to keep every single lineup spot. Now, that being said, if you made me play somebody, I will take the ceilings of everybody. I'll take the Bradley Beal, the Cade Cunningham, the Kristaps Porzingis, but there's about a 0% chance I get to any share of Jaden Ivey, Kyle Kuzma, Sadiq Bey. It just is, it's a flat out bad play now.
Yeah, so For me, I know you mentioned FanDuel specifically. I have to play Porzingis on FanDuel just at that price point as well. Even DK though, for one lineup, yeah, totally cool. I think you're better off leaving yourself some flexibility to swap. But over the course of a bunch of lineups, like I'm still going to be getting to Beal a little bit more so than other guys there. Cade Cunningham to a lesser extent, but it would be hard for me to advocate for just outright fading Bradley Beal.
Yeah, one lineup, there's just nobody that I would play in that game.
Yeah, I think that does make sense over the course of one lineup. Next question we have here is for Lucky. Would you set a max of 4 per team tonight or no max? So this is going to be a DraftKings question because for FanDuel, you can't play more than 4. I'm going to see what my lineups look like. If I have a couple of lineups that have 5 players in it, it's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world to me either because the slate is so small. I want to make sure if I do have any lineups that have 5 players from any one team, it has runbacks from the other side. But if I was to build lineups and I find out like, oh my God, like 30% of my lineups have 5 Clippers players, then I would change things. But I'm not going to make any specific rules for a 4-game slate.
Yeah, if I do, I can tell you right now, if I do get to 5 of anybody, it'll be from the Clipper side. Because as I'm adjusting everything, there are guys like John Wall, a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy so far this season. Zubats has always been over a 1 fantasy point per minute guy. Norman Powell, we know going back to his time with Portland into the Clippers last season at the tail end that he can get it done. Luke Kennard lower on the fantasy point per minute scale, but if you give him more usage and shot attempts, he can still put it up at 4,200. Like, there aren't a lot of guys who are 3K from the Clippers. I will say that. You basically have Nicholas Batum, and if for some reason Brandon Boston ends up I can't imagine a scenario where that would happen. But Brandon Boston's just somebody I've kind of got my eye on at a 3K flat because I know how involved he can be offensively. He played in that last game of the season against OKC, played 38 minutes and put up 38 fantasy points. That was like that slate where everybody goes nuclear and everybody is, 4K or 3K on the last game of this or the last slate of the season. But that's kind of fresh in my mind from last year's NBA DFS. So he's somebody I've kind of that I'll probably get to shares of regardless now. But I mean, otherwise, there's just no way that I'm going to be getting to more than 4 as I'm starting to put it together, just because 5K, 4K is a little bit different than like a lot of 3K, 4K value like we had from OKC last year.
Yeah. And also a big factor is it's a 4-game slate. This isn't a 10-game slate. It's not an 11-game slate. And a lot of the value is concentrated. So on individual lineups, not an issue. Just make sure you have players on the other team. If you have five Clippers players, for instance, you want to make sure you have SGA or somebody from OKC on the other side because you're looking for a little bit more of a high-scoring game at that point. Question here from Maddie T. She wants to know Beal or Cade. I prefer Beal to Cade. Is that the same for you?
100%.
And then J-Val. Oh, okay. So it's a 3v3. My bad. I read this wrong. Beal, Cade, J-Val versus Booker, Ayton. Okay, it's Beal, Cade, and J-Val for me, if I understood this question correctly.
Beal, Cade, and J-Val. Let me find it here.
I'm kind of, but I think part of this is missing. It's a 3v2.
Okay, then don't worry about it. SGA by the way.
Play. Okay, there we go. Easy enough. I didn't want to have to update more shit than I'm already updating right now. If I had to restart this again, how I'm updating players, I would have lost my mind. Yep. Lippy wants to know, is he stupid for fading Luka tonight? Depending how many lineups you're playing, yes.
Hey, Lippy, Zippy, definitely don't do that. You're fine. Yeah. You're fine. Or don't worry about it. You're fine.
Well, I
say that again.
He said, "Am I stupid for fading Luka tonight?" I said, "Yes."
Oh yeah, no, you're stupid if you're fading Luka. Yeah, you're stupid. That's what I'm getting at. I have 98% of him right now in my last run on FanDuel out of 150 lineups. 98% is a lot.
On DK, what are your thoughts playing 5 Clippers with 3 studs, Luka, SGA, CJ? That's good with me, JEW.
Yep, me too.
See, are we caught up on super chats now? Yes, no other ones have come in. So let's talk about some of the value now at guard. And I want to know, of the cheap guards, who are you going to be prioritizing tonight? Because we've got Reggie Jackson now has come more into play. We've got players like Jose Alvarado. There's a lot of players that are cheap that do warrant some reason to think they're really good points per dollar plays across FanDuel and DraftKings. But who are the highest priorities of those cheap plays?
I'm going to go the approach. You kind of do this a lot to me once in a while where it's like, nobody. I don't have like a cheap guard priority until I see the starting lineups. Like for me, Reggie Jackson is not a priority at 5,700, regardless of every piece of news that we just got. It's a different price range. if I'm going to be starsing and scrubsing it up, I mean, I'm much more inclined to be looking at some of this sub 5K power forward value. Shooting guard, small forward, Luke Kennard, Terrence Mann, point guard, shooting guard. I think he'll probably be somebody who shows up in my lineups as I get everything done quite a bit. But for the most part, it's going to be Batum, Covington, Kennard at the small forward spot. Those guys that I'm going to be paying down for. And then there's just too many ceilings at the guard spot. There's too many guys that I want to get to. You know, I said I don't like Steph Curry for my lineups. I'm getting to more Booker, more Chris Paul up there, more CJ McCollum than I'm getting to Steph Curry. But like, there's no denying that he's been unbelievable to start. I mean, he's been unbelievable since he got in the league, period. End of story. 1.55 fantasy point per minute guy now through a very limited sample through 2 games that they've played now, 3 games that they've played, 3 games now in the season for Golden State. He's still got a bigger ceiling. I would much more likely to go up and pay for him, pay for SGA now that we know that he's in, than I am to go down to the floor at guard.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. There are definitely going to be guys I like, but to the point you mentioned before, it's hard to know who they're going to be until we get the starting lineups, right? Like for John Wall could end up starting for the Clippers tonight. For
that'd be awesome,
right? That's a possibility. Is it a likelihood? No, but it's on the table. So it's going to be very much dictated by who some of those cheaper options are that end up starting. And do you think that ultimately there are ones that you're going to play once we get those starting lineups? Or do you even think after that, there might not be ones that are priorities for you just because the forward value is so much today?
Yeah. I mean, the forward value is too good. Look at how the salary breaks down with no Kawhi and no Zion. Your most expensive small forward player is Andrew Wiggins at 7,100 on DK and 7,600 Christian Wood, who could play 24 minutes. Like, I hate paying up in any spot that is not guard. So I'm just going to be paying up at guard for the ceilings, rotating through those guys over and over again. And this is not like NFL. I see a lot of people being like, oh, you have to fade a 50% or a 60% Luka Doncic. This is not that kind of a situation. This is not that kind of a slate. When a guy is so likely to finish up in the optimal, like as we refresh the boom bust tool as everything gets updated, he's going to be so likely that if I eat 10% negative leverage, I don't really care, because there are a number of ways where maybe he doesn't end up optimal, but he could still show up in the winning lineup. And it's just so hard for Luka to go out and burn you on a day like today. And that kind of, it just creates such an easy way to go build lineups. So yes, it's going to be the preferred way that most top players at 150 maxers that everybody's building, but it's also the correct way, because if you don't, you're just dead. You're just drawing dead, because the ceiling is 40, 50 raw fantasy points higher going up to Luka and going the stars and scrubs approach than trying to just hammer the mid-range that are all going to be 10, 15 raw points lower than a Luka Doncic.
Yeah, we're on the same page. And the same thing, we got the question in the Discord channel about whether to play Luka or not. And that's another reason why the answer is yes, because you just don't need the way, just to reiterate something I said before, you don't need that same kind of crazy ceiling game just with the way this slate is breaking out and all the value we have, particularly at the forward spot. So somebody who I think it's just easy to get to, makes a whole lot of sense. And a little piece of news here, SGA, no minutes restriction. I think that was pretty much expected. We were talking about before that our thought on this was just that there was a mistake in terms of the injury report for them, and that the idea was always going to be that SGA was playing today. So SGA, no minutes restriction, good to go. We like him today. And any chance you think his ownership might be lower than expected just because he was on the injury report? And the expectation is also that the Clippers are just going to tank this year, because they are.
Hey, you never know. You get the hand builds. He's still got the Q tag next to him on DraftKings.com. And I love seeing that Q tag next to it, because we know people are going to go out and build stuff by hand. If you guys are listening to us on the subway coming home from work, if you're listening to us in traffic, if you're listening to us, and you're just sitting down now with half an hour before lock putting lineups together, you're going to sit down and you're going to see the Q tag next to SGA, and you're not going to be reacting the same way you or myself or everybody that's in chat has already processed that information and applied it. So I hope so. I really, really do. 9,600 on FanDuel is definitely an overpay still for SGA, even with the absence of Giddey. But then 8,800 on DK, I'm just going to play a lot of him over there, and so be it.
Do you know what we like even more than the questionable tag?
I bet BetMGM.
No, the green check mark.
Oh my God, stop it.
The green check. We love the green check mark.
No,
How
we
would we
don't.
know who's playing if
don't.
it wasn't for the green check mark? The green check mark is everything. Green check mark is life. That is
Please shut your mouth.
the absolute
Please.
greatest
Please.
source of information that
Please.
exists. The
If
green
you weren't
check mark
technically
on
my
FanDuel
boss,
and
I would
DraftKings,
yell at you and I would be
where
upset.
we get all of our information from. It's the greatest thing in the world. The green
God,
check mark. No
stop
better source
talking.
of value.
Stop talking.
No better source of information.
You're done.
It's the best. So we'll wait to see if that ends up coming up or not. The green check mark. Super chat from my Phil Arc. Joval or Porzingis with McCollum already in your lineup. I'm going to prefer Porzingis today.
Same.
And well, this is kind of regardless if it's a FanDuel or DraftKings question. And we'll get into the forward positions now. Unless, is there anything else at guard that you want to talk about here that we haven't mentioned?
No, not really. I mean, one thing about Porzingis, and I was curious about last year too, Kyle's Kuzma, they're just going to keep capping each other's ceilings a little bit in terms of doubles, rebounding. And it's just kind of a weird spot now with Bradley Beal out there too, eating up usage. Porzingis is kind of being taken down a peg both directions there, Kuzma and Beal. He's going to have these explosive ceiling games, but when he's in the first game of the night and he's 26.7% owned, pass, please.
Yeah, no, I think that does make sense. Especially, I mean, there's so much points per dollar value on this slate, even with it only being 4 games. It's hard for me to look at somebody who, because it doesn't project terribly for me, but it's hard for me to look at guys who project okay when there's a lot of guys that project terrifically.
Well, yeah, now you get a 5,900 Zubats who has the entire center position to himself. No Isaiah Hartenstein there this season. You're going to get at least some bigger bodies. I mean, you get Robinson Earl. You get, I mean, that's kind of the guy that he's going to be matched up for most of it. Mike Muscala coming off the bench. I suppose Darius Baisley for a couple minutes as well. But I prefer him. I will go down and save the $2,000. Get another ceiling guard in my lineup, move along that way. It would take 50 plus out of Porzingis for me to really feel bad about that fade.
Yeah, no, I think that for some reason, does your computer ever do this? It's just fucking up all the things I download where it's in random orders. Even if I sort it by date, it's like, no, here's stuff from yesterday. So I'm trying to download CSVs and it's just in random orders and it's impossible to find anything.
Yeah, no, there's that. Pornography. It's fine. No big deal.
Yeah. It's the worst. It's the worst. There's that video.
Jordan I get these. You ever get those pop-up browser tabs and things? And
no, it's just a video Jordan sent me with the cat yesterday, and I understand why he dislikes that cat now, but
doesn't do the things. Put the lotion on the skin.
Yeah. No, sends me this video. Goes, did you know that the peanut butter is only for dogs? It doesn't work with cats. I'm like, all right, Jordan, you didn't need to send me a whole video on it. Can we see him now, or is he still hiding?
He's still hiding. He has no interest in interacting with us. He's lowered his chair even further. He is now officially...
Yeah, he's under the desk now.
Under the desk? What are you doing? Oh, he went dark.
Now he's gone. Bastard. Now we can't even look at him. He hit himself on the camera.
They're interacting and having fun. Oh, no. I want to be having fun, too.
Lippy says he's getting 5 Clippers in his lineups. Is that too many? If you're getting 5 Clippers in all of your lineups, yeah, that's too many.
5?
In all of his lineups. He's just getting 5
No. Here's the other thing, too. Think about it this way. And this is why on a short slate, I really don't want to be doing something like that where I'm going to get to 5. And I just thought about it a little bit more as I was finishing up and looking at some of my lineups. You're going to be rotating through the same ceiling players. So if you go to 4 for a max as opposed to 5, you're when you get to 5, you're actually going to be overlapping quite a bit. It'll be Luka, it'll be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it will be Steph Curry, it will be the same ceiling guys for the other 3 lineup spots over and over again. So I think getting to 4 makes sense, gives you a little bit extra opportunity to get to that one player of deviation, where if you get to 5, you're going to be really overlapping a lot with the other people on a 4-game slate. If this were a 10-game slate and there were a very easily identifiable spot, like last year, I remember there being that Portland OKC game that we had where we just, the winning lineup was basically 7 players from that game and then just random studs that you could rotate through that were all between 10K and 10.5. And you could just rotate through all of them. And every top lineup was some version of that. So I think you probably want to be capping at 4 as I'm talking about it. On FanDuel, you're going to probably get to 3 and 4 quite a bit just by default.
I love this question we got from Steven Leibowitz in our Discord channel. What Clipper do you think you'll be most underweight on?
That is a great question. So we're just assuming guys that I'm going to be projecting minutes for, right?
Yeah. Not. You're
not going to make me go Moses Brown or something, right?
Yeah, I couldn't even pull a player off the top of my head that's all the way at the end of their bench. But yeah. So
I'm probably, if the slate started right now, I would say Reggie Jackson.
What do we have his ownership projected at now?
He's at 2.3%. Is that right?
Let's see. Has it been updated? It might need an update. NBA ownership. Refresh this page.
We still have.
If he's 2.3, that would not be a guy
I would not be underweight to that. Let's see. This can't be right. We just updated some stuff. Let me see. So much in flux when you're on this, but we got plenty of time. 23 minutes to go here. If the slate started with 23 minutes here, not knowing the starting lineups, looking at our current ownership for them, we have 42% Covington, 36.5% Powell. I would not be underweight to either of them. Nicholas Batum at 22, Zubats at 16.5. I'm definitely over on Zoo. Like, I'm going to be eternally over on Zoo now. I would say the guy I'm the most inclined to be underweight to at our current numbers, probably Batum, because he's 3,200, but like that's the cheapest guy from the Clippers that we know will probably be playing minutes. And he was already in the rotation, played 28 minutes against Sacramento. It was a back-to-back, so I think they limited those minutes. It was also a blowout against the Suns. So 14 minutes in that one. Oh, we just got the starting lineup, by the way.
Jackson, Powell, Mann, Batum, Zubats. Let's see.
Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell.
No Covington. It's going to
still
depend
going to
what the
play
updated
a lot.
Ownership is. My assumption is Covington coming off the bench now, though.
Yeah, but I would assume the ownership's going to come down to a place where I might want to be overweight to it now. Like he, not in the starting lineup, could end up around 25. I was waiting for you to ask me like the same questions we had from yesterday, where it's like, who are your favorite tournament plays? Well, my favorite tournament plays are guys coming off the bench from the Pelicans and from the Clippers. Like, I'm pretty sure that that's going to be my answer for most of my favorite tournament plays.
So yeah, Jackson, Powell, Mann, Batum, Covington, Zubats. I'll tell you who I might be most overweight to. I think I might end up being the most overweight to John Wall.
Yep.
Because I'm looking at the starting unit. It looks like there's a lot of opportunity for usage off the bench for John Wall. Yeah, I think this is a good spot for it's also hard to say because I don't know what the ownership is right now. Yeah, so it's a very specific, like, who do we want to be over or underweight to? I don't know, because to me, I might be like, oh, I want to play 20% of a low-owned John Wall, but then he might not actually be low-owned. So that does make it a little complicated.
We have plenty of time. We got 21 minutes. I'm going to run a couple more rates here with these guys all on the court together. Because, I mean, John Wall is such an X factor to everything because he's going to be the best fantasy point per minute guy out of anybody on the floor tonight for the Clippers. I would expect that. Like, I truly, I mean, if we just look at what's his fantasy rate now on DK through the first couple of weeks here. He's 1.11 fantasy points per minute through the, 4 games the Clippers have played now. This feels like a spot.
What do those sample sizes look like?
Exactly. 25 and 21. He sat out one of their games. He sat out the first leg of that back-to-back. He ended up playing. So they played 3 games. He played 25 and 21 minutes. He had over a 30% usage in both of them. And I will say, sitting courtside, John Wall looked really, really good. Humble brag, throwing it out there. But I'm just saying, like, legitimately, 5,200 John Wall is going to be really, really fun coming off the bench for tournaments. I don't think he's going to get steamed up the way Reggie Jackson is. We always expected Reggie Jackson to be starting. I don't expect his fantasy point per minute rate to be in any way hindered. I mean, over the course of last season, he had a 28.7% usage, no Paul George, no Kawhi over the course of the last year, a 1.04 fantasy point per minute guy. There's also no Hartenstein, who was a 1.19 fantasy point per minute guy in that sample size. So like there's a lot of things where we have to be balancing what's the opportunity for tonight. And I think you're right in saying John Wall, probably my favorite tournament player from that team now.
Yeah, I'm rerunning lineups right now. Just from a value standpoint, I think the just points per dollar, it's Norman Powell and Terrence Mann. Is that the same for you? If we're just looking at,
we're going to play lots of them. I'm not going underweight to anything that we have for them. I find it impossible that I would be underweight to them today.
Yeah, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann. I'm rerunning some lineups right now and getting to just all of them. Like those are guys that are popping up a lot for me. You know, it's something of interest now as I'm rerunning lineups. I am getting to more of SGA than I was getting to before. I guess it's just so much more value has popped up that he's just somebody else that is easier to pay up for. Is there anything else you're noticing that's changed for you with all of the news that's come out?
Yeah, I'm probably going to hit eject on Luke Kennard. He's just not a good enough fantasy point per minute guy on today. I have minutes concerns for him. I'm probably I find him a little bit unnecessary on today's slate. Feel the same way about Brandon Boston now that, you know, again, I was just kind of thinking through scenarios of guys that are going to see minutes here, but there's just too many guys that he would have to surpass in the pecking order, even with Kawhi, Paul George, and Marcus Morris out, mainly because pretty unaffected at the guard position outside of the absence of Paul George, which is a big absence, but now you get John Wall there. They can play a lot of minutes, or 28 minutes maybe. I feel like I'd be very surprised if Wall played more than 30 minutes. I'll put it that way. But it's pretty much the same guys. Like I'm still getting to lots of Covington, still getting to lots of Powell, Nicholas Batum. Now that he's starting, he's never been the most intriguing fantasy point per minute guy, but those issues should be quelled by the fact that he is just cheap. He's 3,600 on FanDuel. He's 3,200 on DK. You're just going to get to lots of him.
All right, let's get to some super chats. But first, if you guys want $200 for free when you sign up at BetMGM, basically free money, here's all you need to do. Click on the link below in the description box if you're signing up at BetMGM for the first time. Then you head on over to BetMGM. You place a $10 money line bet on any NBA game, and as long as there's a three-pointer hit in that game, it's going to pay out $200. So, when's the last time you watched a basketball game that didn't have a three-pointer hit, Eric?
Probably. I probably reffed a middle school basketball game when I was in high school. I'm pretty sure Sioux Falls, South Dakota, there were some brick cities out chucking it in some of those games I reffed. That was one of my jobs over the summer.
I also forgot that you were old enough to where you probably have seen basketball games that didn't have the three-point line. So that aside, in terms of games with the three-point line, I think the last one was, I don't know, like early 80s or something like that. There's going to be a three-pointer hit. So guys, $10 turns into $200. All you have to do is sign up at BetMGM, click on the link below in the description box, and you place a $10 money line bet on any basketball game. Let's talk about the rest of the forwards, and who are going to be overall just the highest priority players for you tonight that have forward eligibility across DraftKings and FanDuel.
Norman Powell, Robert Covington. I think those are pretty straightforward ones. Pistons starting lineup looks exactly the same. That's good to know. Trey Murphy, I talked about him. I think he's less necessary now that he's 4,800 on DK and we have the secure Powell. I didn't know if Batum was going to end up starting or not. I think that was still something that was in flux for me. Getting him starting for 1,600 less, we'll see what happens to Trey Murphy's ownership, but I was originally planning on playing tons of him. I will probably still get to quite a bit just because I do like his offensive profile. As you talked about, they're going to need issues, or they're going to have issues scoring the ball if he isn't one of the guys alongside CJ McCollum who can do it. I do expect him to go out and freewheel and chuck a little bit more. And we see that usage go up, not playing alongside Brandon Ingram, not playing alongside Zion Williamson. So Batum, Powell, Covington, the obvious ones. And then I think Larry Nance is probably going to come in a little bit lower owned, depending on when that news comes out. I said there's a very good chance that he could start. There are a lot of different iterations. We kind of know the three guys who will start for the Pelicans, but a 5K Larry Nance, he has always been a good fantasy point per minute guy, whether it was with the Lakers, whether it was with Portland, whether it was here in New Orleans in a limited sample, less so with New Orleans, but also we saw the minutes kind of influx with Jackson Hayes. God forbid Jackson Hayes starts over him. I could see that happening. It's definitely a scenario that I've planned out for, but the later that news comes out, the better. It locks at 4:30 my time, 7:30 for you East Coasters. I think Larry Nance at 5K is somebody I just want to have a lot more than the current 14% we have currently projected.
So I had a bunch of Larry Nance until we found out that Terrence Mann was starting, because that kind of value opening up at forward and how much I like Larry Nance, that brought down just some rerunning. I've been rerunning my DraftKings lineups.
Guard though.
But no, Terrence Mann has small forward eligibility also.
He's point guard, shooting guard.
On
DK.
No, I said I ran my FanDuel lineups.
Oh, FanDuel. Okay. Sorry, I was still looking at DK. I was updating my DK
DraftKings lineup yet.
Yeah. I look, you're playing both sides today too. That makes me happy.
Yeah. It was a terrible decision of all the days to play on both sides, because it was a 4-game slate. I thought any changes that happen, I'm going to be able to update it pretty quick, and that has just not been the case at all. But whatever, I'm multitasking here. But I think just some of the other cheaper players, like a Terrence Mann opening up with forward eligibility, it's just made it so I didn't get to quite as much of Larry Nance. I still have around 20% of him, but I was going to have a lot more until we got that news that Mann was starting.
I still like the ceilings at the guard spot a lot. The answer to my Clippers question is probably going to be Terrence Mann. I end up under on now, which sucks. I think Terrence Mann's the guy. It has more to do with the fantasy points that exist at the guard position. I'm more inclined to play other Clippers that aren't him. Now, I'm going to still get to him. Don't get me wrong. If you're playing one lineup, might be looking at making him my Clipper fade. But I might, we'll see what that ownership gets to. He's going to be really, really popular now. And there are too many guys, and all the ceilings that I want to get to are at guard. And that creates a really, really interesting situation. That might become my fade for the Clippers. I'm just repeating myself, but like I'm talking myself through it. 35, if I fade 35 from him and I get ceiling performances, I mean, you can't guarantee that I'm just going to nail down everybody, but Luka feels pretty guaranteed. So that's one guard spot. I like Devin Booker in that late night hammer and Chris Paul. I like SGA a lot. Less so because DK just point guard eligibility there. I think there's a path where we can get away with. Now, the shooting guard eligibility does make it interesting for DK. We'll see how much I end up there, just because from shooting guard specifically, outside of Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, there isn't a whole hell of a lot else I like at that position. So he might end up getting there by default. Your boy Devontae Graham sitting there like the tournament play of all tournament plays. If you nail that and we don't have that starting lineup before lock, oh my God, he becomes the nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking for anybody that has upside that I think could benefit from these Clippers and Pelicans situations that the field isn't getting to. And there just aren't really that many guys other than Devontae Graham. So we could hit on that in a second also, but we've got super chats piling up here. So first, from Red Skittles, this super chat is to commemorate that Eric called Greg his boss. This is how the show should be. I agree with you, Red Skittles. That is an excellent point. Justin Alperto. Should I fade RJ on FanDuel to get up to all the top guard plays? RJ. Reggie Jackson.
There you go. It's not really fading because he's not popular.
I thought I was going to get to a bunch of Reggie Jackson, and
we have him at 16% now. That's not very popular compared to most other plays.
Actually, so my FanDuel lineups are just uploaded. I have 17% Reggie Jackson. There's so much value. It's really hard to at the guard position to prioritize any of the guard value, in my opinion.
I'm going to be very upset when Brandon Boston plays more than I think.
We'll update it later. We got the secret ability. We'll update it after the game start and we see what's happening midway through.
That's right.
Secret club.
Yep.
All right. So RJ, it was a Reggie Jackson. Alex Kaiser. How much extra run does Najee Marshall get here? How much extra run do you think we see from Najee Marshall?
Well, if he starts, a lot more.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, a lot less. How about that for an answer?
Yeah. Well, here's one of the things too, because I think this is the more pertinent way to answer this from a DFS perspective. I don't think he's somebody I'm going to get to a whole bunch of unless he is starting. Right? There's a whole lot. I like the Clippers value like Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, these are going to be higher priorities for me than Najee Marshall, even if Najee Marshall was to start compared to those guys.
Good point. Like it.
Next super chat is from, where did we catch up on all the super chats?
I think you did good. You did good.
All right. I think that's all of them. So other forwards, is there anybody we haven't talked about at the forward position that is going to be a priority that you want to make sure that people are getting exposure to?
No, it's so clear cut. Everybody else on days like this, you're getting like some really, really bad plays. There's aggressively bad plays to be making now. I would not call necessarily anybody now that we have that Clippers starting lineup. I will say you could get to a little bit more Detroit and Washington than what I was saying before. Just there's more certainty that like, all right, if I build my lineups out this way, I know who the starters are. I know which plays I should be overweight to a little bit more. It makes some sense, but I still think the Pelicans stuff I want to be waiting on. I'm not going to play them. I'm not going to play a single player from that game in my 4 main lineups on DK. I have like 4 main ones that I have situated and allocated, like all the 3 max stuffs and single entry. I'm not going to have a single player from that game. If I did, it would probably be Bradley Beal, just because he's 8,400 sitting there. Porzingis at the center spot. I just have enough concerns there. I want to get to a ton of Zubats. That's going to be a big part of my night. But best of luck to me. Full fade, basically, of Washington, Detroit.
So we just got news that Kawhi is going to be out at least 2 more games. Is this concerning with him coming off the knee injury?
I don't know. I was really concerned and confused. He didn't play the entire first quarter of that Clippers-Suns game. He didn't come in until the 7-minute mark of the second quarter, and it was very confusing. They were already down like 19 at that point in time, so great job, Ty Lue, but I am a little bit concerned about what we're seeing out of him. He looked really good when he was on the floor, though, defensively doing all the same things. I think they know, though, that in the West, having healthy Kawhi, regardless of if they're the 6 or the 2 seed, it doesn't really matter to them. They have a good enough team that I think they'll kind of coast their way into the playoffs. But you just want to have a healthy Kawhi in any situation. So you might as well just take the cautious approach. I'm not going to hit the panic button yet unless we see this be a trend for the next however long. But Ty Lue and Doc Rivers, they've been notorious for doing this stuff before. So I don't know what to really mine out of it.
I just worry that he's still feeling that he's not feeling like the knee is healthy right now.
That would be bad. He's very good because you want him on the floor.
This is just a lot of rest to give this because I mean this is what now he in the first 6 games of the year he will have missed 4 of them and only one of them is a back-to-back. It just seems unusual.
It's not unusual to be loved by you.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. I heard that in a very important documentary once.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Centers. Who are the centers that you're getting to the most right now? Because this is a position where it does present not quite the same value opportunities at other spots, but we've got guys like Zubats, Jonas Valanciunas in the mid-range that we could potentially see a lot of ceiling from. Who are you getting to the most of these guys?
Yeah, it's going to be Zubats. He's going to be my highest owned center. 1.09 DraftKings points per minute. 1.10 FanDuel points per minute. He gives that one mid-range piece that I can kind of get some differentiation. I like Ayton quite a bit too, but a lot of the pieces that I'm going to get to, they're going to be power forward / centers, whether it's Covington, whether it's Batum. They're going to be guys who rotate in, but pure centers, impossible for me not to get to a ton of Zubats. As I said before, if I'm not going to be getting to Kristaps Porzingis at the center spot and Jonas Valanciunas at the center spot, who put up that nuclear game and I think is probably getting steamed up a little bit too much for my liking, considering he's somebody that you're just not going to see him play the kind of minutes we saw last year at times. He's been very limited to 29. He only played 24 minutes. They've been going small in some of these spots too. More inclined to go other places. So yeah, give me all the Zubats and all the land.
And then as far as Valanciunas goes, do you have any concerns about his playing time upside, given that he didn't play the tail end of the overtime game against, was it the Jazz?
Yeah, that's what I talked about. Yeah, I just said that. Yeah, I know you were updating a million things, but yeah, I 100% am in line with that. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel good about anything that we're seeing from him from last year. He played a lot more minutes, which was kind of the thing people were slow on. I was over on a lot of Jonas Valanciunas props early in the season, just because coming from Memphis to New Orleans, his rates were going to stay the same, and he just saw a lot more minutes there. But now with Larry Nance that was acquired in that trade, Josh Hart moving to Portland, CJ McCollum and Larry Nance coming over, I think Larry Nance is just going to be a small ball finishing guy that they're going to have in a lot of closing lineups, and that creates a problem when you see him on a short slate like this getting 20-ish%.
Super chat from CJB33, SGA and Porzingis, or Doncic and Zubats. That is Doncic and Zubats.
Doncic and Zubats for sure. That's like my favorite combination today. I am way overweight on both. 60% Zubats, 98% was the number before. I have 95% Luka Doncic.
Okay. The next super chat we have here is from CS Shred here. KP or McCollum in cash games? McCollum. But I don't know if McCollum would show up in a cash game. I don't know if he would be in my optimal right now, but I'm not going to have the time to look. It's McCollum for me. It's just the opportunity for him there is really great considering all the players that are out for them.
Yep.
So it's McCollum.
Another shout out to Ryan, Mr. Rinpack himself. He was the guy who said, get ready, CJ McCollum's going to be a 10K player last year, and I laughed at him. He was dead right. He was 100% right about that. When those other guys are out, CJ McCollum is usually a smash.
Did McCollum end up being a 10K player?
He got to 10K or like 9,800 or something. He put like a big number in front of it. Regardless, he was like 7K and low owned on some slates, I remember, and just was massively overweight. And it was just a print fest. That I think he was in that 25K lineup I had last year on FanDuel. And trying to think. Yeah, there were a number of times CJ McCollum really, really paid off before people caught on. Oh, he's going to be 10K or close to it.
We caught up on super chats now. Yes. Oh no, okay. We're good on super chats. So let's now just talk overall about the slate. Large picture. Who is most likely to screw you tonight?
Norman Powell.
Are you
Luka Doncic?
In terms of you are getting too much of him or not enough?
Oh no! Oh, so I have so much of
general.
those two guys. Those two guys could screw me by doing well. Kristaps Porzingis is for sure the guy that on DraftKings could really send my night home. He's unfadable at that number over on FanDuel, so that is kind of what it is. I said I was playing him over there. I'm going to continue to play him over there. But him and Beal on DK could absolutely nuke my night. See Cade Cunningham as well. I'm just not playing anything from that early game.
It's so the early game. Did you end up with none of Beal?
Like almost no Beal.
Yeah, that would be concerning to me if I had your lineups. I get why though.
I have him on FanDuel. Again, I'm playing kind of two different sets and kind of it has so much to do with pricing. I'm more inclined. I don't know what this Pelicans lineup is going to look like. You don't know. We have some serious questions. I just want as much swappability, and I know it's only a 4-game slate, so it sounds redundant, but like once Luka Doncic locks, that's a lot of my salary gone. I don't have to think about it as much. As much as I don't like Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and guys in that, like Jordan Poole, I'm okay getting to some of them. I feel like it's almost the same kind of situation for cheaper. There's been its concerns for sure compared to like what you would normally see come March for Golden State, come April for Golden State. But Detroit and Washington, there's enough bodies there that nothing just jumps off the page to me besides Porzingis and Beal on FanDuel. So like, I'm okay getting away from everything else and having that be like my one strong stance of the night.
Yeah. Okay. I think that does totally make sense. By the way, we were about to go to lock. Don't go. We're actually at lock now. Don't go anywhere though, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. For the next 30 minutes, Eric and I are going to stick around. We're going to look for bets that we like in the later 3 games of the slate. It's going to be impacted by some of the news that comes out as well. I'll be sweating the games. We'll see what happens as we get into these games. Who's going to potentially do really well in the early game? Are any swaps we should make based on some early results? So stick around and check out all of that. But we are getting into the start of the slate now. And Eric, what time is the first game going to tip off?
Say 7:12 Eastern time.
I feel like they've been a little quicker this year, haven't they?
Well, depends. Opening night was quick. There was a longer break. Well, opening night, they had the Bill Russell tribute, and we're like, oh, it's going to go 20 minutes.
Yeah,
it started like 3 minutes after the hour. I was like, all right, well, cool. Just like Bill Russell, the greatest basketball player in terms of rings that we've ever seen, that we probably ever will see. But cool. Let's just start the game on time, I suppose.
We've got news, by the way.
What? Oh my God.
Jose Alvarado, the ninja himself, starting for the Pelicans. The social media videos he made were hilarious last year.
They were great. But also, this is why you don't play that early game. It comes in like at lock. And now I have way more swappability for Marshall, for Alvarado. I have more maneuverability than other people do. So I feel pretty good with the decision, regardless of the result.
Yeah, I think that definitely does make sense. And now we could adjust to Jose Alvarado starting. And who are the other players? Okay, here we go. Alvarado, McCollum, Najee Marshall, Trey Murphy, and Jonas Valanciunas. So what are the priorities now that we know this?
Tournaments, I'm going to play Larry Nance. I can tell you that somehow I'm going to still get there in some capacity. But Jose Alvarado, everything I've been saying about the guard position not having value, if you give me 30 minutes of Steel Fest from Jose Alvarado, he's going to show up in my lineups. That's just kind of the way that works out. So, boy, oh boy. Devontae Graham, dead to me. So we can take out all of that we were doing. Can't even touch it. Najee Marshall, that came from the top ropes, that's for sure. I thought he was the guy that I did say was going to start alongside of it, but they're going CJ McCollum at the 2, but he's going to be handling the ball the whole time. It's basically Jose Alvarado playing the 2. God, I'm going to get so 3,200 Najee Marshall with 3,200 Nicholas Batum. I'm just going to be paying up at guard more and more and more and more. Maybe Jose Alvarado doesn't show up as much as I think as I update this, but I would think he would. Just later news, new starter, 0.8 fantasy points per minute. But we know his steal upside. On FanDuel, the guy is very, very intriguing. There was a run during the playoffs last season where he had 2 steals in 3 or 4 consecutive games. So that's what you're dealing with Jose Alvarado. He is annoying. He is a pest. He's like Patrick Beverley-ish, but he actually gets the conversion on the steals. So there you go. Let's see. How much is he over on FanDuel as I'm going through this?
He's 30. Was it 3,700 or 3,900?
Jesus, I'm going to get to so much of him on FanDuel. Yeah, I'm going to get to so much of him on FanDuel.
All right. We've got some super chats here now to answer. First from J Rowe. Does Dorsey, Hardy, or Campazzo get Tim Hardaway Jr.? Don't worry about those guys on this slate. Dorsey, Hardy, or Campazzo.
Yeah, if you're playing 150, one of those guys are going to leak into a lineup here and there, but you're not going to get them in any kind of a meaningful way if you're using stochastic projection, so you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, there's just if this was a 4-game slate where there was no value, then I think this would be a different situation. But
why would you even take that risk? If I'm going to take a risk, I'm going to take it on the backups of these guys on these teams. That's the other thing, because if Jose Alvarado fails, what's the most likely thing? It's probably that CJ McCollum and Devontae Graham to some capacity played more than we thought. What happens if Trey Murphy fails? Well, Najee Marshall or, God forbid, Jackson Hayes. I would rather take shots with these backups from a foul trouble perspective where somebody comes in like Larry Nance, who plays well and ends up closing a basketball game, playing 29 minutes when you don't necessarily expect it. But yeah, different slate. That question is for a different slate.
Lippy's asking us, thoughts on your boy Draymond at 8% owned. There's better plays today. I'm sure I have some exposure to Draymond, but that's not really a priority for me on this slate. Corey Jefferson, Murphy, Lance, and Zubats, or Man, Porzingis, and Zubats again. All right, so
Porzingis doesn't matter because it locked. So I like the first one more anyway.
Did we get to all the rest of the super chat? Just Guitar Man saying, thanks guys. Really appreciate the team. Stokastic, thank you very much for the super chat, Guitar Man. We appreciate it. And we're all caught up on the other ones. Has the game
Where's
started?
Jordan? Jordan, show yourself.
He's dealing with the cat. And also he's over us.
Get used to us, baby. You're going to see a lot of us over the next 7 months.
Yeah, he's over it. He's on to bigger and better things. I'm also at a point to because there were so many swaps we were making last second. How aware of you of the players you even have exposure to at this point?
How aware of you are the players you have exposure to?
How aware of you are of the ownership you have to players today?
Oh, I'm pretty aware now because I know that I have nothing of importance in the first game outside of FanDuel exposure to, some Washington pieces, tiny bit of Cade Cunningham, tiny bit of, I don't even think I got to Jaden Ivey at the end of the day. I got to one share of Jaden Ivey. Cool. Out of 150 on FanDuel. So legitimately I know I have tons of Powell. I know I have tons of Covington. I know I'm going to need to move around some of that. Covington's still going to be a good play coming off the bench for me. I'm still going to get to some there, but Batum, I have tons of. Zubats, I have tons of. It's not an exact number, but I know who I'm rostering.
I don't, especially because I have to change lineups for the. Have you already made updates for the Pelican starters?
Yeah, almost. For me, it was just simply giving Alvarado 30 minutes, and now he is in a lot of my lineups on FanDuel. A lot of my lineups.
Yeah, I think that makes a whole lot of sense at his salary. And then also just his game is so much more favorable for DraftKings scoring than FanDuel scoring anyway.
No, FanDuel scoring as opposed to DraftKings.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry. FanDuel scoring, just because the steals bonus, the defensive stats bonus, that's what this guy does. He'd go out there, he could have 3-4 stocks, even in limited minutes, and now he's starting. So the first game has not tipped off yet. We're at 7:07. I didn't put in an exact time for the over-under. You put out 7:12 was yours, right?
Yep. Looking good.
Could be spot on.
One guy that we haven't talked about at all that I'm curious what you think his minutes allotment, what his opportunity is going to be absent Giddey. Are you getting to Lou Dort?
Not really. Honestly,
okay.
He's somebody who there was points in time last year at upside where there was a bunch of guys out for the Thunder when there was no SGA, there was no Giddey down the stretch. Eventually, they shut down everybody. But here's the problem. By in large part, he's been a guy who's kind of a high floor, low ceiling type player. I don't know that flies in the mid range for this particular slate.
Doncic, Dinwiddie, Bullock, Finney Smith, McGee. Normal.
Yeah. Oh, that would be the worst. If they came out with some weird starting lineup.
Just, you never know. You never know. Still, Christian Wood coming off the bench. That's good. Good.
All right. Making some changes here for the Pelicans. Did you end up getting too much of Alvarado for DraftKings, though?
I'm updating that one right now.
Okay.
On FanDuel, I got north of 30%. So I have a lot of Alvarado now over there.
So I was going to say one thing that limits him a little. Well, two things. First of all, the DraftKings scoring is not as favorable for him. And then the other point of this also is he's more expensive on DraftKings.
Yeah, he is
Najee Marshall, I think I'm going to end up getting to a good amount of on DK.
Yeah, you play him in Batum. Welcome to every stud. I might get to more Curry. That's what I think it probably is going to be what ends up happening is I probably get to the ceiling of Curry. I think he becomes a better tournament play because you just get unlimited value. And why wouldn't I want his ceiling at 10%?
It's also the timing of the news. Because earlier, I didn't think I was going to really like Najee Marshall, even if he starts. But the news came out after lock. And that's something that people just don't have, or people generally aren't as willing to make swaps for. So I don't think that he's going to be somebody the field really gets to. So for me, Najee Marshall, just the timing of the news, it makes him stand out a little bit more. And then as for other guys here from the Pelicans, it's nothing else too crazy. Trey Murphy, I liked him, still like him. McCollum, Valanciunas, they were obvious kind of considering the circumstances anyway as players to get to. So nothing really changes on that front. But rerunning my lineups now that we finally got a little bit of break in the action, a little bit of settled.
Awesome job by our data team too. Everybody updating everything very, very timely. This is like a crazy, chaotic slate, and everything's been updated. So just shout out them. They're doing a great job over there.
Yeah, these are the hard slates to update projections and whatnot.
I got 45.8% Najee Marshall now.
Ooh, all right. I'm about to rerun.
Seems a lot.
I'm about to rerun my DK lineups, and I'll see where I come in with them.
Getting like three Pelicans and 3 Clippers in like every lineup. I don't know if that's what I want to have happen. It was pretty.
Do you have more exposure? Do you have more exposure to the Clippers or the Pelicans?
I have more exposure to the Clippers still.
Yeah, I do by a pretty wide margin.
Not by a wide margin. Najee Marshall and Trey Murphy. As I was doing this, Trey Murphy, I think, is going to see his ownership come down from some of the Clippers stuff. That lineup also came out after lock, which I love when that kind of stuff happens, because I don't think people Trey Murphy, I'm a little worried about, because it is the thing where people will account for it already. Because at the flip, by the time we got to lock, Trey Murphy was still a play people had on their radar. But something tells me I need to get to more Alvarado than I am on fan or on DK right now. I got 9% of him. I didn't get much.
I didn't get a lot either. I'm kind of okay with it on DK.
Are you?
Though.
Okay, because I got north of 30 on FanDuel. I think I'll just get my exposure to him there. And if he nukes it there, at least I'm covered to a certain extent. Play multiple sites, people. It's a good thing.
And that was going to be the other point I made also, is that I think he's such a better play on FanDuel that if I have a bunch of exposure to him on FanDuel and just not that much on DK, which does look like it's going to be the case because I'm uploading my lineups right now, I have less than 10% of Alvarado on DraftKings. That is not going to be the case on FanDuel. I'm just okay with that being what it is.
I want to pull up the boom bust tool, because that's kind of the thing where optimal percentage, yeah, there's a tiny bit of positive leverage. He's just 13.7% optimal. That updated 24 seconds ago. Once again, shout out our guys behind the scenes doing a great job. But you look at Doncic, 50.5% optimal percentage. Zubats, 41.7% optimal percentage. That's great for me because I have 70% Zubats on DK right now. I think he is just an absolute slam dunk windmill slam for DraftKings purposes today. So I love seeing that they're in line with that. Norman Powell, there's slight negative leverage, but who cares? He's the third most likely optimal percentage, over 40% of the time he's working out optimal. I like Chris Paul as a decent enough piece, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 28% optimal percentage. People ended up getting there in a pretty meaningful way. Maybe this might be the time when we start pulling back a little bit, because SGA was like 15%, and now he's up to 38% on FanDuel. He's up to 28% on DK. That feels like a lot for a guy who wasn't even supposed to maybe play basketball today, but there's no Giddey. I totally get it, but maybe I get to a little bit more Booker and Chris Paul and just obtain a little bit more information going into the late night game.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Let me rerun my lineups then I'll know exactly.
I was trying to talk a lot there so that you could update everything.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm in no hurry. We've got 16 minutes.
Oh, we've got time.
I just have
7:12 and the game hasn't started.
7:14 actually.
Oh my God.
I wonder what's going on here. What was that?
It's 2 minutes in.
Oh, not on the NBA app. It isn't.
Jordan Klein, when did it tip off?
All right, so
2 minutes ago.
All right,
suck a dick.
Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up over here.
Yeah, see, 2 minutes. I got it exactly.
You did get it exactly. You won.
What do I win?
You're allowed back on the show tomorrow. You kept your job. Congratulations. This was the test.
Thanks, boss.
Appreciate it. More brownie points for Eric. More brownie points.
Love brownies. They're delicious.
Maddie Mitch has asked the super chat here. Does Nance close over Marshall? So I think this is going to be it's going to be very dependent on game flow and who's playing well. If Marshall's defending well, if he's making his shots, he's probably going to close. If he struggles and Nance comes off the bench and plays really well, then we're going to see him potentially close. It's going to be totally dependent, I think, on the game. I don't think that the Pelicans are going into this knowing who their closing lineup is.
Yeah, that's why I think I still want to get to Larry Nance. I think he's like I'm trying to figure out what I want to do in some of these. So I updated everything and I'm looking at my main lineups and I'm trying to decide if I am comfortable putting some Larry Nance as like my absolute one-time YOLO play in this main lineup. Have him and John Wall and just really try to get all the leverage where, because I said my favorite tournament plays in terms of guys who aren't going to pull our ownership are all the guys who are coming off the bench from those two teams. So might as well play Nance and play Wall and try to get the two guys I think have the most upside from those benches.
The Bailey Zappi of last night.
Hey, that worked out, by the way.
No, it did.
Made money. It was beautiful. I was gonna say we were hanging out on Zoom, just chatting, hanging out, and building out our lineups. Like I just had, one main lineup. I ended up playing Bailey Zappi in my main lineup at 2%. It was so beautiful. Late.
I played. I 5x my money on Showdown last night, and it was actually as easy as not playing the Patriots defense. I think that's probably the worst play I've ever seen in a Showdown slate before.
Ever. Legitimately the worst play I have ever seen.
Which we didn't know that going in, that they were going to be 70, but like that was such an egregious number they ended up being at. So there was no way of no. By the way, I'm not getting to a lot of Najee Marshall on FanDuel. DraftKings, yes. FanDuel,
well, yeah, because then I mean he's just such a good play. And here's what I want to know: how much Terrence Mann did you get to? I am underweight to Terrence Mann.
FanDuel or DK?
DK even.
Okay, so DK is in about 60% of my lineups.
Oh God, I am so screwed if that's the case. What am I doing here? Because I'm getting to all these ceiling guys. They're all at guard. Like that's my issue. Like every guy I want to play is at the guard spot. I'm not gonna play Andrew Wiggins in my main lineup. Like I legitimately have Norman Powell projected for more than Wiggins for 2,300 less. I got to use that money elsewhere. This is just. Like Najee, that's where Najee gets uncomfortable for me. Like I think you can get to Christian Wood maybe a little bit more. He should be somebody who shows up more than he's showing up for me, but I had him capped. That's bad. That's why. What
do you mean you had him capped in terms of what his max exposure you could get to was?
Yeah, because I was getting to like an aggressive number once I updated everything. But that was a long time ago. I just had 10 sitting there, just 10. So now I just took the cap off.
Rerun it. You're going to get to a lot of them. I'll guarantee it.
Yeah.
You'll get to more than 10 at the very least.
Well, because now he's like the only guy. So if you're going to play Alvarado and you're going to play Terrence Mann, you're going to get to Christian Wood by default. Like you just have to. Like where else are you going to spend your money? Jonas Valanciunas?
So for DK purposes, you mean?
Yeah.
Let's see. Who are my most rostered spend ups now that I have lineups all uploaded? Luka's the obvious one.
Yep.
Let me go. I only had it by guards. I didn't have. Okay. So Luka, number one by a mile. Then beyond that, it is. I've got a bunch of guys around 30%, like Ayton, McCollum, Chris Paul, Beal, who's already started. Yeah, I mean, there's not like one guy who it's like, oh, now I get to an infinity amount of him. It's just a bunch of these other secondary options that end up being in, 25, 30% of lineups. SGA, Chris Paul, Booker, Beal. It just kind of mixed around for me.
I get a feeling we're gonna have a massive dupe train at the top today. I get that feeling.
Could be the do you know the Michael Chandler meme / gif?
No, I don't.
When he called out Conor McGregor after winning his first fight in the UFC. Surprise, surprise. See you at the top. Something along those lines. That could be today's slate. See you at the top, and it's just everybody dying.
Oh, please, Larry Nance, be the hero that Gotham deserves. Do it. I don't know how else to get different other than try to take shots on these bench guys. Otherwise, I'm just going to be duping, and I'm okay with it. I'll take some money today, but oh God, Jose Alvarado, I need to get more on DK. This is really bad.
You ready for some early results?
Yep. I bet Porzingis is just torching it, isn't he?
Early results. I'll start on the Pistons side of the game. Isaiah Stewart, 2 points and 4 rebounds in the first 5 minutes.
Okay.
Jaden Ivey, 3 points, an assist, and a steal in the first 5 minutes. Porzingis is absolutely torching it. Porzingis is 8
Oh,
points.
I thought I was going to pull it up and see 15. He's got 9 in 5 minutes. I can live. And again, on FanDuel, 7,400. On DK, that is no guarantee and nothing because Zubats is going for 40 plus. So you gotta get that up north of 50, Mr. Porzingis. Good luck to you.
How much Alvarado did you end up getting to on FanDuel?
On FanDuel, 32%.
Yeah, let's see.
On DK, I got to 8.
I'm gonna have to give him. I have
mainly because I just like Terrence Mann so much more, and so if I do have lineups for Mann, they're gonna go his direction. And then I'm just paying up more or paying down more at forward just because I want to get to Booker. All the ceilings are at guard. I've said that a million times, but it can't be emphasized enough. Those lineup spots for Alvarado, if he puts up 30, who cares? Like, you still want to have Luka, Curry, Booker, Beal, McCollum, Cunningham. Like, you'd rather have all those dudes as opposed to Alvarado. So if I'm going to use my money up, which I plan to do, I think he's just the better path. Unless you just nuke Christian Wood. See, now I just reran it and I got to 28% Christian Wood when he was uncapped. And now I am getting to Alvarado again. This is just the worst.
Yeah, so I just I just realized I did not end up getting to a whole bunch of Alvarado on FanDuel. I'm going to try to I had 15%. I want to get a little more than that.
What are you talking about? Just like Garuba. I had 0% Garuba yesterday. Were you reacting to news? I was reacting to news. I had 0% Garuba.
Yeah, that's also so one thing yesterday. Eric and I didn't do the post lock show, but after the Rockets starting lineup came out and it wasn't Garuba. Garuba was shit as a play. He was great when we thought he was starting, and then the lineup came out and he wasn't starting and he was less good. We can't
spoon feed everything when information comes out.
I mean, we could if we're on the show.
We could if we okay.
Yeah, we can't when we're not on the show.
We can't when we're not on the show. That's what I'm saying. But I'm saying when news like that comes out, there's not a damn thing I can do about it. How much John Wall on DK? That's a great question because I am nervous to say what it is because I haven't even looked yet. I
bet I have more than
29% John Wall.
Okay. No, I assumed I was going to have more than you. I have 20%.
I have more than you. Look at that. Yeah. Again, I'm just playing these bench guys, and I kind of nuked a couple of their projections just to. If I can hit one, that's good enough by me.
Yeah, I thought 20% John Wall was pretty aggressive, but you've got more than that. What is actual projected ownership end up being?
I think it was 18 or 19.
Oh, so never mind. I thought he was going to be really low.
19% is our current projection on him. I would be surprised not starting a lot of other pieces of value, lots of spend up at guard. I might be surprised if he ends up that high. I think Reggie Jackson might take a little bit away from that. But Reggie Jackson currently, 7% projected ownership? That doesn't seem right, does it?
There's just better I don't think anybody's projecting Reggie Jackson especially well.
Okay. I'm not, but you go back to last year. What did I say his usage was? He had like a 28% usage rate or something, absent Kawhi, Paul George, and Isaiah Hartenstein. That's pretty noticeable.
Do you think he's being slept on then?
I don't know. That'd probably be pretty uncomfortable for him.
Are you gonna up your projection to him? You're just gonna make dumb jokes about him.
That was the best. That was my EMAC impression. Got him. EMAC 2024. The election is coming soon. Be ready. Put him on your ballots. I might write in EMAC in my ballot at the given rate, but yeah, I'm probably gonna nuke it a little bit. Why not?
EMAC would be the youngest president in country history.
Would feel like it, wouldn't it?
Certainly would be.
I don't know what's going on. I feel like there should be an age limit at a certain point. Like, I wouldn't want my grandpa running the country, but I don't know. I just want to have the best candidates. That'd be great. I want good candidates.
You're taking a stand there, Eric. I agree with you.
I don't know. Politics is broken. Everything's broken. We all need to get along and love each other.
I saw a super chat. Oh no, never mind. That was the one we answered before. Let's look at some updated. By the way, I've made so many updates now. I don't know if you do this. I keep panicking. I keep
Jordan
panicking.
Klein's like, oh, we're not going to talk politics. I don't want to talk politics. I would never want to talk politics. I'm just saying EMAC 2024.
Saying we're voting EMAC for president is not exactly politics.
Yeah, I just want everybody.
I
want everybody to play more DFS. They'd be happier or less happy. Depends.
Update on what's going on. Porzingis is up to 10 points in a rebound. Nobody else is doing anything really for Washington. Beal, 2 points and 2 assists. Big dud for him.
Beautiful thing.
Nobody else doing anything. On the Detroit side, Bogdanovich, 6 points, a rebound, and an assist. So pretty hot start for Bogdanovich. Isaiah Stewart, 2 points, 4 rebounds, but nobody else. Cade Cunningham laying a dud. I think Cade, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm just going off memory. Cade has sucked in the first quarter of every single game this year.
Yeah, it's been wild. Oh man, I just ran into a little bit of a data problem. Let me find this. Let me find Jose Alvarado. There he is. Found you, you crazy bastard. There
what
you
happened
are.
to him? He just got lost.
He just disappeared. Well, I just don't know what I'm doing anymore. Not that I ever did, but whatever. There it is. Found it. God, this is just, I'm getting into some interesting builds.
In terms of what? What's different than what you were expecting?
Well, I just have a lot less Norman Powell now. That seems like a bad idea, Eric.
Well, what's a lot less?
Oh, I went from having like 65% of him to 25% of him. And that was because I tried to force Alvarado into more lineups. And now I have 3 minutes left and I'm just in a pile of smut because I'm an idiot and I don't deserve to have good things happen to my life. That's all.
That's the best point you made on the show today. So in terms of the late guys, I kind of want to give a boost to Reggie Jackson. I assumed he was going to be more popular. If nobody is going to play Reggie Jackson, that seems strange to me.
Yep, that's what I'm kind of trying to do a little bit of as we're finishing down and coming down to the wire. I wanted water, but that's John Mayer. I bet you don't want John Mayer.
No, not at all. So minutes so far for Reggie Jackson this year. He played 24 minutes in the first game of the year, 27 minutes, then 24 minutes. It's hard to project him for a lot of minutes based on that. Plus, there's John Wall in the mix. It does look like it's going to be 24 minutes Reggie Jackson, 24 minutes John Wall going forward. That's just the worst possible situation for fantasy.
It's not great, Bob. Not great.
I wonder if we'll see them play alongside each other tonight, though.
Oh, God. I would assume so. I don't see why they can't. I mean, John Wall and Bradley Beal played for however many years together. That doesn't feel drastically different. Also, Bojan Bogdanovic, 9 points. Let's go. Over of 18.5, my favorite prop on the day.
We have a super chat from Big Money NJ because I love Eric's self-abuse. That's it. Look, Eric, it's profitable to hate yourself sometimes. It's really not self-abuse, though. It mostly comes from me.
It does really come from you.
Yeah, I like the if you watch these shows, be like, boy, Eric is really hard on himself. No, it's really me more than anything. And I know that Jordan has opted to not show himself on camera at all today, but Jordan will give him a hard time from time to time as well. Although with that said, Jordan, number one, is hiding himself too. He has sworn that he's only going to be nice to you because you took him to the basketball game the other day.
Did. See, the Lord works in mysterious ways. This is how I get it done for the people.
Jordan, but be honest, Jordan did at least put out at the end of the night, right?
No comment.
Courtside seats. That was so uncomfortable. That's the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my entire life.
I cringed myself. I don't know.
Yeah, it was rough. Look, Jordan just playing us out. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Jordan wants nothing to do with this show anymore. As you guys are leaving, if you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to BetMGM if you guys haven't signed up there. $200 for free. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.